This is Meteo Mundo.
Good morning, everyone. It is very early on a Monday morning. Hope you're doing well. Rusty McCranie with you here for our live coverage of the landfall of Hurricane Debby. Great to hear from you guys. Thanks for tuning in early on this Monday morning. Let me know in the comments section below where you're viewing from. All right, friends, we're going to take our time. We're going to get into what's happening right now with Debby. About ready to make landfall in the Big Bend area of Florida. So we'll be monitoring that situation for us here. We're going to deep dive, obviously, into what's happening right now with Debby, down the road, what could be happening with Debby as well. And then obviously from time to time, we'll look at the rest of the tropics as well. So very early on this Monday morning, let's set the scenario. As of the 5 a.m. advisory, Debby is still a hurricane with winds of 80 miles an hour, pressures 979 millibars, and it is moving to the northeast at around 10. We did have a bit of a slight easterly jog overnight. So Debby has been able to drip a little bit to the east. So it's a little bit farther south in the Big Bend than maybe what was previously expected. And also that means obviously the timing has accelerated a little bit because instead of kind of heading up towards Apalachicola Bay, it is trying to make a move a little bit closer to the Horseshoe Beach Cross City area here. Kind of on the, it's going to be almost kind of like the Dixie-Taylor County line. It's going to be really close, but the Hurricane Center just put out a statement 10 minutes ago that the northern and the eastern eye walls are already on shore. I know there's a ton of information on this imagery here, so we're going to kind of stair-step this and take it pretty simply. I'm going to drop off a couple of things here. First of all, we can see that the eye wall is beginning to move on shore. Now, all of the numbers that you see are going to be wind gusts. And I got to tell you something right now. There is a lot of wind whipping through the peninsula of Florida. As a matter of fact, down here in the Lakeland area, we actually have a tornado warning. So one of the things that I'll actually be tracking live this morning is as Debby begins to move on shore, first of all, obviously, we're going to have a prominent storm surge along in the eastern portions of that eye wall. Again, 6 to 10 feet was the potential from the National Hurricane Center, but also tropical storm force conditions that will stretch across most of the peninsula through the morning hours today. And then the inherent rotation and the opportunity for some tornadic activity here to the east of the center. Just like most landfalling tropical systems, there's not much to the west. Places like Tallahassee are going to be okay. And the more prominent impacts are going to be along portions of the Big Bend area, all the way back down to Levy and even Citrus County, towards Crystal River and Homosassa. Here is Cedar Key. If you know that area, it's a small little island complex that actually juts out into the Gulf. I've actually done some hurricane coverage at Cedar Key. So this is an area that obviously sees very high water inundation. If they get 6 to 10 foot storm surge, that is quite significant in that area. Life-threatening kind of situation there. And you can already see the Gainesville area has had some wind gusts of up to 50 miles an hour. Let's take a second here, and I'm going to pause this real quick, move over to our NEXRAD radar sites here as well. So again, I have the opportunity and the ability to look at all the different NEXRAD sites here across the country. So I'm going to endeavor to pull up a couple of them here. And again, thanks for tuning in, guys. Drop it in the comments section below where you're viewing from. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hi, Fiona. Good morning, June. Hi, Sean. Good morning. Hi, Ray. Good to see you in Miami. Shelly, good morning to you. Rule, good morning in Grenada. Love it. Appreciate you guys tuning in from all over our Meteo Mundo world. We appreciate it. So again, the eye wall is extremely close to landfall right now, okay? And you can clearly see that right now. Notice that the flash flood warning goes for several more hours. Again, 8 to 12 inches of rain and some locally higher amounts are absolutely possible out of these areas. Let me just go check something here real quick, guys. Just want to make sure I'm getting our new radar data here. It's early in the morning for me too, but we'll take a look at a couple of different things here. There they go. Okay, so now they're popped on. So hopefully Now we can pick up the Jacksonville radar. So it's going to be the live shot out of Jacksonville. And here's the Tallahassee radar. Okay, perfect. So this is the live view out of the Tallahassee radar. This is a very close radar to where we actually have, of course, our eye. And it's about ready to move on shore. The Hurricane Center has already noted that the northeastern portions of the eye wall have come on shore. So we're going to get landfall here with Hurricane Debby. Winds, again, sustained at 80 miles an hour. The gusts, I just want you to notice, even towards the eastern part of the state, St. Augustine, right around 40. Gainesville, Stark, 41. So it's going to be very rough for the north central part of the state. Flooding is going to be a huge potential as well. That flood threat for places like Horseshoe Beach down to Cedar Key. Now look, this is, in a general sense, an area that is not extremely populated, but there are some clusters of population, and obviously these folks here are going to be very concerned, and hopefully they took this very seriously and have evacuated, because with our onshore winds on the eastern side, that's where the water is piling up. And if I want you to notice that obviously the orientation of the Florida coastline here from the Big Bend to the Nature Coast is going to feed in a lot of storm surge, several feet of storm surge as well. And then the other situation is the opportunity for this inherent rotation with the storms as well. Okay, and we'll get into this. So this will be something I'm going to be monitoring here. Again, tornado warning right now towards the Lakeland area. It's going to be extremely rough weather well south and east of where we actually have landfall early this morning. Let's take a look at a couple of different graphics here for you guys. Apparently that's not working. Okay, let's see here. Taking myself off camera works. No problem. So let me switch over here real quick. It's probably just a button issue. So the first thing I want to show you guys is the official track from Debby. And good morning to everyone too. Thanks for taking a second and tuning in. Shelly tuning in from Jamaica. I appreciate that. Good morning from Grenada. Kevin says they're under a tornado warning. Yes, you are. We mentioned it. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the update. So again, this is the official 5 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. That's a full advisory as well. All right. Again, landfall, even as of the 6 o'clock update, was imminently happening. The track is going to be one that is going to be very problematic for the southeast United States, especially southeast Georgia and coastal South Carolina. The official track does have Debby coming back offshore as we get into early on Wednesday, and that's problematic because if the center of circulation can actually get back offshore, this is going to have more juice to play with. It's going to be feeding in more energy from warm waters up the United States East Coast and the Gulf Stream. So the rainfall potential could, again, if you tune into yesterday's video, catastrophic, historic. Those were words from the National Hurricane Center. We could be talking about 2 to 2.5 feet, 24 to 30 inches of rain in portions of southeast Georgia and coastal South Carolina. Eventually that will kind of drift into North Carolina, and that area could see some very heavy rainfall as well. Not as much as South Carolina and southeast Georgia, but that opportunity is there. Well, let's see. I'm off to a bad start as far as these graphics go, but that's okay. Let's go over here and take a look at what's happening with the storm surge with Debby. This is the other big issue this morning, guys. Storm surge is obviously the push of water that Debby brings in. And we're looking at a 6 to 10 foot storm surge through the Big Bend area towards the Nature Coast, all the way down towards Yankeetown, even 4 to 6 feet down towards Chaskawiska, and then 3 to 5 feet. And this is this peak storm surge. So some of these areas down towards Tampa Bay have already seen that peak. But a 3 to 5 foot storm surge, I can tell you right now, there has been a lot of flooding along the west coast of Florida, beginning really yesterday morning and into the afternoon, certainly overnight. And that flood threat with the storm surge has just gotten farther north as we've gone through the rest of the morning hours. Then we have an additional storm surge threat for basically the Georgia coastline into the South Carolina coastline there, towards the South Santee River, towards the St. Mary's River. And even down towards Charlotte Harbor, they've had some storm surge. West of the center circulation, towards Indian Pass, it's a 4 to 6 foot storm surge. It's going to be an issue, guys. No doubt about it. Now, the flash flood potential is, again, something that we'll be hammering in. We've got landfall right now, and that obviously comes with an extreme wind threat. But down the road, the flash flooding threat is going to be very significant through north central Florida, southeast Georgia, and portions of southern South Carolina, maybe the far southern side of the North Carolina area south of Wilmington. But again, this graphic just shows the potential, but the actual number could be 24 to 30 inches of rain. It could be extremely, extremely heavy rainfall. Okay, let's get back into it here, guys. And again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Christopher, good morning to you. Thank you, Fiona. Can't see the join button, unlike other YouTube sites. It's a great question. Join is where you would become a member here at Meteo Mundo. I know it's available just depending on what you're viewing from. I think it's by device, if I am not mistaken. Like I am watching right now from a tablet and I have the join button. So if you want to become a member here at Meteo Mundo, that's what that join button is for. If nothing else, if you guys want to do me a big solid, hit the like button for me right now. And if you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo, we appreciate you tuning in. This is our live coverage. Again, we forecast across the Caribbean, the Bahamas, and the Atlantic Basin when we have tropical systems like this. And again, if you're just tuning in, we have the imminent landfall here of Hurricane Debby early on this Monday morning. This is going to be in the Big Bend area of Florida. That eye wall about coming on shore right now near the Cross City area. Looks like we're just north of Horseshoe Beach, but this is the live radar out of Tallahassee. And we are beginning to see that eye move inland. So if you guys know this area, and I do very well because this is my hometown, Crystal River. I grew up right here. So I do know, and I have been flooded out by a storm. I think we've talked about it on the stream before. It was the no-name storm of 93 in March. It actually wasn't a hurricane during hurricane season, but I've had salt water push up far enough to flood us out of our home. So I've been there, guys. And that's the big problem here. This is going to be a tremendous flood threat through the Big Bend and the Nature Coast. Again, 6 to 10 feet of rain. The numbers that you see are wind gusts, all right? And then the other issue is, if I zoom out a little bit and take off the radar very quickly, there's a very large tornado watch box. And again, we're going to get some spin inherently coming in with these storms. So we got to watch out for that too, okay? And that's what we are seeing back down. Now again, the other thing about this, guys, is that the Hurricane Center, the Weather Service offices, they're going to be doing a couple of things here. First of all, if they see rotation within these storms, I promise you they're going to fire off a tornado warning, all right? They're moving so fast, they're going to be short-lived tornado warnings. But if they see enough rotation, they're not going to have a ton of time to analyze these storms as they're moving at 40 and 50 miles an hour. If they see a line of storms that have some inherent rotation, they're going to be firing off some tornado warnings. We had one in Polk County just a little bit ago, and I would expect additional potential for tornado warnings well away from the center of circulation. So for the peninsula of Florida today, basically as far south as Lake Okeechobee, Tampa, St. Pete area, maybe as far south as Port St. Lucie. It's going to be extremely rough weather for today. We're still going to get the opportunity for a few bands of rain in the far northwest side of the Bahamas, but generally speaking, we've pulled most of that activity away. So again, here at Meteo Mundo, have an opportunity to look at all the live radar data here, and that's what we're doing early this morning. Good morning, Mildred from Antigua. How you guys doing this morning? Keith says, hi from Lake City. Power is out. Lake City is in the north central part of the state, near the I-10 corridor and I-75. I've passed by Lake City so many times I can't count. And so it already shows you that the wind is significant here. We've had some 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts already in this area, and it's going to get worse. So we're going to see some additional power outages in these areas. But I appreciate you, Keith. Thanks for tuning in and letting me know that as well. Let me get back over to our base radar product here. It's going to allow me just to loop this up in a little bit longer fashion. And again, in real time here, you're going to see these wind gusts. And I promise you that a lot of folks are going to be tuning in from other parts of Florida because these winds are significant this morning. Travel is going to be a big issue, right? trying to get out the door anywhere from I-75 to I-95, but obviously here, this is going to be a big issue across US 19. Flash flood warnings are up in effect right now, and the other big issue will be the opportunity for some tornadic activity. Again, the 6 a.m. statement from the Hurricane Center simply said Debby is very near landfall near the Big Bend area. The life-threatening storm surge. We did have a recent report at Cedar Key of 4.6 foot above mean higher water, above high tide basically. And I've been there. 5 feet is bad. You get to about 8 feet or higher in the Cedar Key area, and that's when you really start to have some significant issues. I actually stayed at the hotel at like the highest point in Cedar Key, and they literally spray paint the lines up that road because there's just a little bit of a higher peak there as to where the water inundation is, but that's going to flood a lot of those areas. It's going to be the same situation towards Horseshoe Beach as well. And again, as we get towards daybreak, guys, we're going to be efforting to bring you some live cameras as well. If you want to send me a picture or video and you live in these areas, it's mymeteomundo@gmail.com. mymeteomundo@gmail.com. And if one of our moderators wouldn't mind throwing that in the chat, I'd appreciate it. mymeteomundo@gmail.com. Again, guys, if you guys are living in this area, let me know what's happening. Keeping an eye on this. If you're just tuning in, if I back this up just a little bit here, and it's really awesome to hear from you guys all over the world. I do appreciate it. If I back this up a little bit here towards midnight, and we can take a look at the trajectory of Debby. Debby did have a little bit of a jog to the east. There was a huge flare-up of convection right here. Big old thunderstorms formed just right around midnight, and it almost tugged Debby's eye a little bit farther to the east. And so that's that kind of jog east that we had within the last 6 hours. And you notice now that clearly we have Debby moving on shore right here. Give me just 1 second here, guys. I'm going to, for some reason, I'm having an issue. Oh, well, it just signed me out. Okay, fair enough. My tablet is not being pleasant with me this morning. I've got those early Monday blues. How about you guys? And it's also extremely stormy where I live. There we go. Okay. Fair enough. The biggest thing is I want to make sure I'm signed in so I can see all of your chats. Thank you, Fiona. mymeteomundo@gmail.com. Key says, just woke up. Hard rain and windy. Good morning from Barbados. Good morning, guys. How you doing? And we'll get into, when we have a minute, that tropical wave that's moving through the Lesser Antilles right now that does have a potential tropical activity. Obviously, the majority of this will be what's happening with Hurricane Debby, but for the rest of the week, I will be tracking yet another tropical wave moving through the Caribbean with the opportunity for development as we roll through the week. So we'll discuss that as well. But again, back over to what's going on at this point in time. Here comes landfall very, very imminently. That's the radar loop over the last 6 hours. I'm going to drop that down to about 2. And we'll just kind of take this. So this is going to be a very heavy rainmaker. All of these storms are going to be having rotation. Look at all of this wind, by the way, guys. Again, all of these numbers are wind gusts. And so even all the way back down into Clearwater, Florida, well south, a couple hundred miles south, you're looking at still some wind gusts in the past couple of hours that have gone over 50 miles an hour, 45 in Tampa. So well away from the center, we have tropical storm force conditions, even towards Orlando, especially up in Lake County. Leesburg has a 46, 45 mile an hour wind gust lately as well. Again, have to watch out for the rotation to go along with some of these storms. Go back over to our live radars here. This is the one out of Tampa. And the reason why I'm looking at the Tampa one right now is because I can go over to the velocity product, and this is the wind, okay? So what we're looking at together here is the winds being produced out of these storms. Now on this product, what I'm going to be looking for is areas of green close to areas of red, all right? Red are winds moving away from the radar site, which is right here. Green are winds moving towards the radar site. And within this embedded flow, right, even just little areas like this, you can get some embedded rotation, and that can drop a brief funnel cloud, a quick tornado. Typically in these scenarios, they don't last very long, but that's the opportunity. So all of Florida, from this area down towards Bradenton, Sarasota, north, and into coastal Georgia, under a tornado watch right now. So well away from the actual center, we have that opportunity. Let's go back over to the Tallahassee radar site. Pop that back up. The other great thing about this too, and I'm just going to drop this flash flood warning real quick here. We obviously have an idea that it's going to be flooding pretty significantly. So we can take a look at the winds. There's going to be some congestion here, guys. Still not seeing hurricane winds onshore. Even here, it's still relatively lighter. This is from the Tallahassee site. So I'll be monitoring this. But you can see even well away, Live Oak, Jasper, Lake City. Nice big push of wind coming in right now. And again, the numbers are on your screen are going to be the wind gusts. Sean says, UF alum wants to know how things are in Gainesville. Sean, it's going to be a rough one for Gainesville. There's no doubt about it. Look, they're on the eastern side, right? So that's the other thing about what's going on in Florida right now is that the peninsula is on the dirty side of this storm, on the eastern side. So south of the center of circulation, you're going to have the storm surge down the Nature Coast. But inland, we're going to have squalls, very heavy rain, the opportunity for some flash flooding, and winds that will top 40 and 50 miles an hour. Gainesville's last report was 39, Keystone Heights 40, and these stronger winds will continue to push up north and east. So tropical storm conditions are likely for most of north central Florida through at least the early afternoon hours. But even well away from that, again, we have some really strong wind gusts, tropical storm force conditions. And again, all of this purple that you see is a tornado watch that is currently in effect. And that tornado watch goes until, let's see here, they've extended it now. So let me check in on that. I keep saying through 6 a.m., but we're already past 6 a.m. Now until 4 p.m. Makes a lot more sense. So it shows you that even in central Florida, and especially north central Florida, the impacts of Debby are going to be felt through most of this Monday, where there's the opportunity for some severe weather well away from the center of circulation. There's been so many times, and Beryl did the same thing. As Beryl moved inland through Texas, it was Louisiana and portions of Arkansas that got slammed by numerous tornadoes. So the tornadic threat is going to be something to have to watch out for as well. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate your question. Go Gators. Turks and Caicos, good morning to you. Very hot over here. Yep. Obviously, you guys had some impacts from this, but now it's been a little bit drier. And that's the one big thing that you guys have been telling me is that when you haven't had rain, it has been an exceptionally hot summer, and I get that. I mean, it has been very, very rough. And so we need some of this tropical moisture to help cool us down, to bring us the rainfall and the water that we need. But the intensity of some of these storms has obviously already been problematic here early this year. Beryl and now Debby. We've had some storms in the southwest Gulf of Mexico that have moved across the Yucatan and into Mexico. And there's, look, we're just at the beginning of August, guys. We're really just beginning to kind of crank up the machine, if you will. I think we all know it's going to be a pretty active remainder of the hurricane season. Thank you, David. Ocean Current says we're in South Jacksonville, Fleming Island. The wind is picking up now. Appreciate that. Look, it's going to be rough along the East Coast as well. I mean, you can clearly see these wind gusts, St. Augustine, Jacksonville North. It's going to be 30, 35, 40 sustained with some higher gusts. So tropical storm conditions are likely to spread across all of north central Florida. And again, we're really close to landfall right now. Highway 19 is the coastal highway here along the west coast of Florida. Basically goes down most of the coast, bends back up here, connects in towards Tallahassee and I-10. And again, this is an area that is not extremely populated. There's a lot of wildlife areas. There's a lot of management areas is what they call it. It's a truly, nature area. There's a few fishing camps and places like that. But there is not a large city right now that's in the direct path. That is good news. But obviously, this area is going to have significant impacts. You get a little bit inland in places like Perry and Mayo and Branford and Cross City. Those are the first ones that will get the hurricane conditions, because we'll still see some hurricane conditions moving across those areas. And we'll see how close we get for Lake City. Could we get some more than 60-mile-an-hour winds? Absolutely. Thank you, Fiona. I appreciate it. Let's get the hearts out for Fiona. She's awesome. Her 20th super on a live stream. And a lot of them here at Meteo Mundo. Edward says Gainesville here. Good morning, Edward. Thank you, Fiona. Appreciate you very much. Appreciate you guys tuning in as well. Meteo Mundo's live coverage of the landfall of Hurricane Debby early on this Monday morning in the Big Bend area of Florida. Rusty McCranie with you here. I'm going to just reset a couple of graphics for those who just might be tuning in. I know as we get a little bit deeper into the morning, we'll get more and more of you coming in here, guys, and I appreciate you stopping by. All of my friends in the Caribbean as well, thank you very much. The Bahamas. Rena says, good morning, watching from St. Lucia, rainy and a bit windy. Boy, and also, some of my friends in the Caribbean have been enjoying some wonderful Olympics. Some gold medals abound, some medals abound for portions of our friends in the Caribbean. So congratulations, and thank you very much, Rena. So this is the 5 a.m. advisory. This was the last full advisory from the Hurricane Center. And I'll continue to keep an update on if there's any additional, the updated statement from the Hurricane Center is still 6 o'clock. We'll get something very shortly that the eye has moved inland and we have landfall, but we know where it's happening now. So this is the forecast track from the Hurricane Center. And again, I mentioned it in yesterday's video, last couple of videos. There will be some forward speed to Debby over the next day or so, but as Debby gets into the southeast side of Georgia and then into South Carolina, right now the official track has Debby moving back offshore, and that's bad news because it's going to be feeding into more moisture, more energy from the very warm waters near the Gulf Stream coming up the United States East Coast. And it's rain. That's going to be a big issue. We talked about it yesterday. The Hurricane Center has used the terms historic and catastrophic. 24 to 30 inches of rain is possible in these areas. Notice that Debby doesn't move much in at least a 48-hour period. So southeast Georgia, coastal South Carolina could really be in for some problems before Debby moves back inland, and even some heavier rain portions of North Carolina as well. Oh, I did it again. Let me take myself back off camera. Hang on. Storm surge, 6 to 10 feet, Big Bend area. And if you know that area, again, you understand that it's a big problem there, right? All the way back down towards Yankeetown, 4 to 6 from Yankeetown to Chaskawitska. Now this is peak storm surge, so you start getting back into the Tampa Bay area. And I want to be clear, those areas have already seen their peak, but we still have some winds that are pushing 45, 50 miles an hour in Pinellas County. And that continues to push water in because the winds are still out of the east right now and out of the south. All right. And then eventually up the Georgia and South Carolina coastlines, you're going to have that storm surge potential as well, 2 to 4 feet. Good morning, guys. Good morning from Freeport. Good morning, Dave. This is the flash flood potential. And again, if you know anyone who lives in southeast Georgia, coastal South Carolina, first of all, I hope that they're listening to what's going on from their local National Weather Service offices. But it's going to be a big issue. The rainfall is going to be prominent. They're still calling for 10 to 20 inches of rain with locally higher amounts up to 30. Again, they're using the terms potentially historic, will likely result in catastrophic flooding. So unfortunately, Debby is going to be a two-part storm. It's going to be the landfall this morning, the wind damage it could be bringing, and the storm surge damage it could be bringing to the Gulf Coast of Florida, the potential severe weather threat today as well. But then down the road for the rest of the week, it's the flood threat Debby could bring, especially to north central Florida, southeast Georgia, coastal southern Carolina, South Carolina in general, and maybe even far southern sides of North Carolina, south of Wilmington. It's these areas here that could have 10 to 20 inches of rain and locally up to 30 inches. Could you imagine 2.5 feet of rain falling in the next 5 days? It's a potential, and that is a very significant situation. So again, guys, appreciate you tuning in. Coming up here at 6:40. Good to see all of my friends across the Caribbean. I'll take 1 second while we have a quick little minute here and just talk about this next tropical wave. Again, here at Meteo Mundo, we cover a very large area. A lot of you have already chimed in and said hello from the Lesser Antilles and the Windward Islands. This is the rain and wind moving in right now. By the way, just real quickly, I noticed that St. Lucia and Barbados both had winds of over 40 miles an hour yesterday afternoon as this wave moved through. Now, this is the wave that could eventually develop, okay, into something tropically. It's not going to happen over the Lesser Antilles, but it could happen as we go down the road, right? This is going to bring additional rain to this area early this morning. My friends in the ABC Islands could actually get some rain and storms for today. And they are desperate for some rain in that area, as I know others of you are. But notice how long that this plot is, guys. It goes all the way through the Caribbean, across the Yucatan, and into the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. My initial thoughts on this is that it's not going to develop over the next couple of days. Conditions become a little bit more favorable south of Jamaica as we get towards midweek, and then late week as we get into the northwest sides of the Caribbean. Still plenty of time to monitor this, but again, I know a lot of you are tuning in from these areas this morning, so I do want to highlight that very quickly, that there's going to be that opportunity that this is our next tropical disturbance to have to monitor, maybe our next tropical depression, tropical storm and beyond, and of course, because it's August, there's another very robust tropical wave moving back off the West African coast, which also bears watching. Here's the bottom line. Between now and the end of October, we're going to have to be watching this main development region of the Atlantic for additional development. Very, very likely. Dave says, good morning from St. Vincent. Good morning to you, Dave. Hope everything's well over there in St. Vincent. Hope you guys are recovering from Barrow well as well. St. Vincent and the Grenadines were hit very, very hard by Barrow, so I hope you guys are doing well. Good morning, watching from Jamaica. My friends in Jamaica, I appreciate you guys very much. So again, if you're just tuning in right now, we're getting towards landfall here. It's imminent. We've already seen part of the eye wall move in. This is the enhanced satellite imagery. Debby is a Category 1 hurricane. Winds are 80 miles an hour. As we get towards daybreak, we're going to be efforting to bring you guys some live cameras. Fiona has already put in the chat the email address, mymetiomundo@gmail.com, if you guys want to send me a picture or a video. Cover says, am I safe in Orangeburg, South Carolina by Edisto River? I actually know Orangeburg. So for now, you're safe. Here's what I would say in all seriousness. You need to check in with the National Weather Service office there for localized messaging, okay? Because the rainfall flooding situation for Georgia and South Carolina is going to be a story later in the week. So right now you're okay, but you need to be really checking in with your local officials for that local messaging. It is an area of concern. It's a little bit, obviously a little bit farther away from the coast, but that being said, the way that Debby is going to be spinning, there's an opportunity for some very heavy rainfall in that area. So right now, okay, but the worst, unfortunately, is still to come. And we've been mentioning that Georgia, South Carolina, the flood threat as we get later into the week. Take off this wind radii. I just want to take a look at this satellite presentation for you guys. Obviously, it's early in the morning, so we don't have the visible satellite imagery yet. But you notice that there's a nice little blow up with thunderstorms here. And it does look like on the enhanced satellite imagery, let's slow this down for a second. Look at that little eye peek out right towards the end. So again, what you had here was a hurricane really trying to strengthen to the very end. How many times have we said that as well? Remember the current ocean temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. The sea surface temperatures are around, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Celsius. These are the water temperatures, but obviously that's rain cooled there. Some of the gusts. So it looks like the eye might have tried to sneak in near Horseshoe Beach, right there. You see how it kind of almost wobbled, spun back south and east? And we've mentioned this when we talked about Beryl, right? These storms don't make, they're not this smooth line, right? They do this, but the general trajectory, you can draw a straighter line. But these storms, especially weaker hurricanes, when they're still trying to wrap convection around them and get even stronger, really have that wobble. But it looks like that last little bit stopped and then spun back south and east. Now, a big issue with that is you're keeping that eye just offshore a little bit longer. And I was curious about this because even at 4 a.m., the Hurricane Center said landfall is imminent. And then at 5 o'clock, they said landfall is imminent. And then at 6 o'clock, they said landfall is imminent. It's really taken some time for it to spin back in and move on shore. Let me get back the wind gusts, by the way, guys. I want to bring those back on. We'll start with temperatures and then swing back over here. So if you're just tuning into our live coverage this morning and you live in north central Florida, first of all, tropical storm conditions are going to be likely through at least early to mid-afternoon in this area, okay? Maybe even deeper into the day in certain parts. Obviously, we have hurricane conditions along the coastline right now. Landfall is imminent or is happening as we speak. And then for the rest of the peninsula, even south of I-4 today, we're going to have the opportunity for some severe weather, some tornadic activity, and tropical storm conditions. You're seeing these wind gusts still in the Tampa Bay area that even in just the last couple of hours have still been 45 and 50 miles an hour. Up in Leesburg, that's in Lake County, they've hit 50-mile-an-hour winds, and it is going to be a wet, squally day. Travel is not going to be fantastic, no doubt about it. Patricia says, good morning from Jamaica. Nikki says, Sarasota, Florida. Here we have a lot of flooding. Our pool is overflowing into our garage. Thank you. Have not just lost power here. It's not the house. We just lost power here. Thanks, Nikki. Know that area well. My dad's from Bradenton, so I'm a West Coast Florida guy. Patsy says, good morning, Rusty, watching from St. Kitts and Nevis. Be safe, everyone. Thank you, Patsy. Appreciate you guys tuning in as well. Thanks, guys. Welcome to our live coverage here at Meteo Mundo. Again, what are we pushing here? Nearly 7 o'clock. It's not daylight yet. And again, we're going to be efforting to get you guys some live cameras as well out of these areas once we hit daylight. So stick around for that. Let's bring back on our radars. Let me dump off the satellite data here. So again, I have the opportunity and the ability to take a look at a composite of all the radars, or we can take a look at individual radar sites. So the closest radar site right now to landfall is the Tallahassee radar, okay? And we can clearly see this void in the radar signature. So we're really starting to push the northeast eye wall inland across Highway 19. And again, this area, it's kind of split Levy-Dixie County line, south of Taylor County, certainly north of Citrus County, kind of right along that line. And again, probably out of almost everywhere along the west coast of Florida, this is one of the least populated areas. That's good news, but it's not like no one lives there. There are wildlife management areas and, you know, national refuges. There's a lot of very natural areas here. There are some smaller locations. There are some smaller fishing camps and places like that, but it's very dotted. We don't have anything very concentrated here. Some of the areas that actually have a little bit of population, Horseshoe Beach and certainly Cedar Key. If you know Cedar Key, it's this little complex of islands that actually sticks out into the Gulf. I've actually done hurricane coverage there during my time in TV. It's very interesting to be in Cedar Key and to have a hurricane pushing just off towards your west, because guess what? They shut down the road and you're basically stuck on an island. And a lot of that floods. We know from the Hurricane Center that they had at least a 5-foot storm surge in Cedar Key, but that was a little bit ago. And it's not going to shock me if that number gets higher. Remember the official storm surge forecast, and storm surge again is the wall of water that tropical storms and hurricanes push inland that can really cause problems with inundation near the coastline, 6 to 10 feet in this area. That's going to be a significant issue there. Then as we go through the remainder of the morning hours, we're going to have the opportunity for tropical storm conditions and some severe weather as well. A tornado threat is going to be another issue to have to monitor here, okay? If I take off the radar just very briefly, you're going to see that this entire box is a tornado watch, okay? So even way south and east of where we actually have the landfall of Debby, there will be a severe weather threat and tropical storm conditions. Already very early this morning, we had a very quick tornado warning for Polk County, way down here. All right, so kind of as we go through the morning hours, from time to time, I'm gonna be switching radar sites just to keep an eye out for that threat. But winds are gonna be significant here. Let's loop this up just over the last half hour, but we can clearly see now Debbie's eye is beginning to move on shore. And again, did so with winds of 80 miles an hour as a hurricane. Now, again, on the western side, not nearly as much convection. Really just the outer bands are getting towards Tallahassee, which is the state capital of Florida. But you can see those bands, they're all going to be rotating and spinning around the circulation of Debby. So these are the bands that I'm concerned about for 3 different reasons. Heavier rain, stronger winds, tornadic potential. And the Weather Service offices, again, it's not going to shock me if they start seeing more rotation with these storms. We could see numerous tornado warnings fired off one after another. If you guys remember when Beryl moved into Texas, that really happened on the eastern side of that storm a few hours after landfall. Good morning, guys. Cover says they're talking about reversing traffic flow on I-26. Yeah, and I drive, we vacation sometimes in North Carolina, and we take I-26 to I-77. So I know that area well. Yeah, look, if they feel like, I want to be clear, and this will be the next story of Debby, if they feel like that this rainfall that Debby could bring into southeast Georgia and South Carolina could really be life-threatening, where no matter where you are, the water is going to be high enough to cause big potential problems, they could reverse the lanes and get everyone out of there who wants to get out of there. That's not going to shock me. And Cover, you're doing a great thing by keeping an eye on the local officials and their messaging. I only pass along local messaging as well and official information, but you know, it's your responsibility to keep up with that real-time information. But it's good to hear they're talking about that. Good morning, Donovan. Timothy says, watching from Barbados, a lot of rain. Yeah, buddy, I hear you. Corey's got the thoughts out for our friends in Florida. This is the weakest hurricane to hit Florida. Is it? I've lived here a long time as well. I mean, obviously it's a 80, 75 is a minimum, so I guess it's close. Alfred says, good morning. Good morning to you guys as well. Hey, we have over 500 people watching, and I really appreciate you guys because it's pretty darn early in the morning right now. I want to thank my friends here in Florida, across the United States, and all of you who are watching in the Caribbean and the Bahamas area as well. If you want to do me a big favor, click that like button right now. I would really, really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo and you're looking for these live tropical live streams, daily forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, you found your home, click that subscribe button right now. I really appreciate you guys doing that as well. These simple little things really help out the channel, and I appreciate it very much. Let's see here. So this is the velocity. Again, this is the wind. And let me give you a little idea. You see this little spin right here? That's a very weak vorticity spiraling into Mayo and Perry. And this is what I'm talking about. It's not strong enough, I don't think, where the Weather Service office in Tallahassee is going to fire off a tornado warning for this. But this is what I'm mentioning. All of these storms moving inland have inherent rotation, okay? And that's going to be a problem for these areas. We're just going to have spin. And so that brief tornadic potential is going to be there. Especially on the east side of the center. Back over to the live radar out of Tallahassee. Again, every so often I'm going to zoom out here. Because I'm checking if there's any tornado warnings. And this radar obviously cuts off. So from time to time, I'll go back over to what we call the composite radar, and that's the full composite of all the next red sites in the United States. We can take a look at that. And again, early this morning, just to give you an idea, right? And you can see the time on the left-hand side of your screen. These were tornado warnings, these little polygons right here. Way from the center. But that's what's going to be happening. And I want you to notice as well, let me do this real quick too. Love to analyze this stuff in real time with you guys. If I pause this, we look at the wind. Now it's going to be a little harder to see, so I'm going to have to zoom in. So this is the Tampa-St. Pete area, obviously extremely populated area. It's really hard to see, but can you guys see that these wind flags, I'm not sure I can do much more to make it a little bit easier for you to see. They're just so tiny, unfortunately. If I drop this off, it might be a little bit easier. Let's see here. Do you guys just see that these flags, they're pointing for where the wind is coming from. There's still a south, even a southwest wind in Tampa, and that's pulling, and you can see those flags stay, that's still pulling a ton of water right into Tampa Bay. All right, so that's an inherent problem as well. That's why we have this significant storm surge threat. And as you would expect, as you go up the coastline, you're just going to have these south and southwest winds as well. Inland and Inverness, same situation. Okay. Gainesville, it's a southeast wind right now. Tallahassee is going to have a north wind. So there's your spin. And again, if you're just tuning in, we do have another area of potential development. And we'll continue to highlight that from time to time as well. It's not going to develop more than likely in the next couple of days, but as it traverses the Caribbean, it will bring first some beneficial wind and rain, but then also the opportunity to be the next disturbance we have to be monitoring. Good morning, guys. Good morning, Natasha. Thanks for tuning in from Chicago. Love it. I have been to Chicago once in my life. Jaden says, raining hard now in Aruba. Great to hear, Jaden. The ABC Islands are friends in Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao have been an area that have been desperate for some rain. So glad that they're getting some of those downpours. Hopefully more to come too, Jaden. You're kind of actually on the beginnings of that next tropical wave coming in. So probably going to see even more. Notice also the winds are already fresh across the Georgia coastline and into South Carolina as well. But again, significant wind in the peninsula. Tropical storm conditions are very likely. Claudette says, good morning from Lakeland. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. Again, thank you guys. Nina says, good morning from Waycross, Georgia, in the house. Awesome. All right, guys, we're approaching 7 o'clock. Just make sure that the Hurricane Center hasn't put out any additional messaging I'm going to pass along to you guys. They did. Here we go. Debby makes landfall near Steinhatchee. And again, that is I believe they want to call it a wildlife management area, right, guys? So Debby has made landfall near Steinhatchee. Expected to bring life-threatening storm surge portions of Florida and major flooding in the southeast United States. 979 millibars, 80-mile-an-hour winds. Moving north-northeast at 10. So I think we're still good with our data here. By the way, that is the latest information on Debby. I'll continue to try and update that for you guys. So here we go, guys. We've had landfall near Steinhatchee. It's north of Horseshoe Beach. There it is right there. And again, the circles that you see are the automatic plots from my weather computer as far as wind intensity. And so those pinks are hurricane force winds. So it's not, Debby wasn't the biggest hurricane, right? The hurricane force winds didn't extend extremely far out, but certainly this is going to pack a big punch here for anything coastal. There's a fair amount of homes, I believe, that are on stilts in this area, just depending. But there's going to be some wind damage here across US 19, Cross City, Horseshoe Beach. There'll be some wind damage down in Cedar Key, fairly close to the center of circulation. They were near that eastern eye wall for a while. And again, that storm surge, it's a bad landfall for Cedar Key. With it being north of Cedar Key, they pulled in all that south wind. And that's been an issue for them as well. Places like Chiefland and Otter Creek, and then kind of on the western sides of Alachua County, right? Gainesville, it's where the University of Florida is. 50-mile-an-hour winds, but other areas like High Springs and Archer. And then you get towards Bell and Trenton and Brantford. And again, the official track from the Hurricane Center takes this inland towards Live Oak, where I-10 and I-75 meet. And then as it gets into southeast Georgia, it begins to slow it down starting early tomorrow morning. All the numbers that you see are wind gusts. So tropical storm conditions are likely for all of north central Florida, spreading into south central and southeast Georgia through the morning and into the afternoon, and even back down in places like Orlando and Tampa, Florida. We'll continue to see tropical storm conditions at least through the morning, if not into the afternoon. And then the East Coast, from Jacksonville to St. Augustine to Daytona Beach, even down towards the Cape Canaveral area in Brevard County, Florida, there's the opportunity for some at least tropical storm gusts. Now, you get north here towards Jacksonville and St. Augustine, these winds become more sustained. All right, not expecting a lot of storm surge, but could there be a little bit of water trying to pile up here? It's a possibility. And heavy rainfall and flooding will also be a big issue. So again, we now have Debby that has made landfall here in the Big Bend area of Florida near Steinhatchee. Okay, again, a lot of natural area here. You get a little bit south of the Big Bend. It's called the Nature Coast for a reason. Not the heaviest populated area of the west coast of Florida, the Gulf Coast, but certainly we're going to see some structures, some damage here. But if we have a bit of a saving grace, we weren't pushing into one of the major metropolitan areas with Hurricane Debby. Mary says, good morning from Melbourne, there in Brevard County. Good morning. Dario says, good morning from Barbados. Natasha says, it's already humid in Chicago. Nicole says, good morning from Aruba. Good morning. One of our other friends Jaden in Aruba says you guys are getting some rain right now. Are you seeing that too? Let me know. Be great, the ABC Islands, to get some rain. And I really appreciate my friends across the Caribbean here tuning in for our coverage. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to bring back on the Tallahassee radar. So, you know, here's South Jacksonville, 40-mile-an-hour wind gust. It's going to be a rough morning. Gainesville, 44. Tom, good morning from Crystal River, my hometown. Tom, let me know how it went there, buddy. I don't know if you live near the bay or not, but I did see someone doing something very Crystal River-like yesterday and jumping in the water, potentially naked. I just saw some photos like this is what's going on in Crystal River. I was like, sounds right. Earl says, good morning from Antigua. Appreciate your work. I appreciate you, Earl, tuning in. Thanks for tuning in for this coverage here early on a Monday. Good morning from Valrico, kind of an eastern suburb of Tampa near Brandon. Good morning. Lyric says, good morning. Nothing but rain in St. Lucia. Pat says, breezy in Gulf County, no rain yet. Have a camp at Live Oak. Concerned. Understood. Yep. And that's kind of what I was trying to reiterate is, although there's no big cities in this area, there are a lot of like fishing camps in smaller kind of clustered populated areas, right? Along these rivers and right along portions of the Big Bend. And so those are the spots that we're talking about. Again, nothing with a high population in any one concentrated area, but there are pockets of smaller communities and fish camps and places like this. It truly is kind of one of the last natural areas of the west coast of Florida. Very beautiful up there. But unfortunately, Debby has brought its brunt to these areas. And if you guys have ever been to Cedar Key, it's this beautiful little area as well. Small little islands that jut off, and they kind of get separated from everyone else because the road floods. There are some higher points along portions of those areas, but 5 to 8 feet of storm surge cause some problems. And again, I've been there doing live hurricane coverage. I've seen what happens. And that water action from the Gulf, because these islands literally stick out into the Gulf, that water action along the Gulf is something to be seen, but not in a good way. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Thank you for liking this live stream. If you haven't become a subscriber yet to Meteo Mundo, I appreciate you guys doing that right now. I tell you what, now that we're at about 7 o'clock, I'm going to grab a quick drink of water. And we're going to kind of reset the scene here real quickly. Because obviously now we've got a little bit of daylight coming in. A lot of folks, I got to tell you, in Florida, it's going to be a very, very breezy day, very windy day as well. The opportunity for some tropical storm conditions through a lot of the area the remainder of this Monday. So I'm going to bring back on kind of the things that I'm going to be watching for us here. The first thing to note, okay, and I want to try and make sure I make this very clear, is that the impacts of Debby are going to be felt well away from the center of circulation through a good part of the peninsula of Florida. I mean, even down towards Orlando and Tampa, at least through the remainder of the morning hours. All of the numbers that you see are wind gusts, okay? You want to talk about a not fun morning commute if you are required to go into work today. I-4, I-75, US 19, I-95, even along the East Coast, these winds are quite blustery. We've had very heavy rainfall. We've had some isolated flash flooding. It's been more nuisance flooding inland, portions of the west coast of Florida, all the way down towards Port Charlotte and Fort Myers, certainly up towards Tampa. You guys have had more true flooding. Some areas like South Tampa, which just flood all the time regardless, but obviously closer to the coastline, have had some water inundation and some issues. And there are, and these green lines show you, all of the flash flood warnings that are currently in effect, and these go for an extended amount of time. We're going to continue to see tropical storm conditions. Again, winds that will be going 35, 40, 45, 50, and maybe even close to 60 miles an hour in gusts in these squalls that are moving inland. Because Debby has made landfall here, the peninsula is on the east dirty side of the storm, right? All of these storms are rotating at this point in time. And so the opportunity for brief tornadoes or water spouts along both coasts are absolutely possible. We've had a few tornado warnings way down in this part of the state very early this morning. Now, obviously, the most concentrated worst weather will be along the path that Debby is going to be taking. So we'll be watching for our friends up here towards Perry and Mayo, and that would be places like Gilchrist County, into Alachua, western sides, Union, Columbia counties, kind of moving north and east, across I-10 and into south central and southeast Georgia. And you can already see the winds in Valdosta are picking up. That's very far southern Georgia, up to around 40 miles an hour. So this is the area that's going to have the biggest concern for actual wind damage, right? Taking down trees, knocking out power. One of our friends in Lake City already said the power's gone, right? So even here, through the eastern panhandle, north central portions of the state, we're going to see fairly widespread power outages. Then, as Debby moves into southeast Georgia and slows, we start to talk about the heavy rainfall flood threat becoming more of the most important hazard, right? Where we could be talking about 10 to 20 inches of rain. And yes, the Hurricane Center says maybe even 30 inches of rain. If we get 30 inches of rain in any one spot, that is historical, that is catastrophic. That is something to be discussed as we go through the rest of the week. Obviously, when you're talking about that kind of rain, that is something over days and days and days. But as Debby slows up, and the forecast is for Debby to sneak back into the far western Atlantic just off of the Savannah coastline, Savannah, Georgia coastline. If the eye can get back out over water, there'll just be a little bit more in the way of opportunity to pull in even richer moisture and even heavier rainfall along the coast. The best case scenario is to keep the center inland, continuing to weaken it and try and have it move a little bit. But if you've been tuning into my last couple of videos, I said that if Debby took the farther west track, didn't dive into Florida and Fort Myers or the Tampa area, and went all the way up the coast, and then it wasn't until sometime Monday that it made landfall, the steering currents that would push Debby quickly east fall apart. And unfortunately, that's what the models are picking up on, where we could have a very slow movement of Debby starting by tomorrow morning. Get back over to the chat. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you very much. Peter says, warm welcome from Barbados. Mark says, good morning from Jamaica. Thank you, guys. Greetings from Curacao. Awesome. Yes, and rainy greetings. Again, the ABC Islands getting some rain. Awesome. Good morning. How should the weather be in Orlando by Thursday? We will not have any impacts in Orlando from Debby by Thursday. We'll be back into our typical summer sea breeze showers and storms in the afternoon, but no direct impacts from Debby in Orlando by Thursday. Appreciate the question. Peter says Barbados, partly cloudy skies with some light to heavy showers, so on and off. Nicole says, Rusty, hearing thunder in Aruba. Haven't heard it in a while. Yeah, it's not raining yet, but you can see where it is in other places. So, and we'll get deeper into it as well, Nicole. Tropical wave moving through the Leeward Islands right now. There's a few pockets of showers and storms ahead of it that are moving through the ABC Islands, but you guys actually have a pretty good chance for some rain over the next couple of days, which I know it's been very dry in the ABC Islands, and that is, once it passes you, one of the areas I'll be watching for the next potential tropical development. Right now, it's just an elongated area of showers and storms. Very windy conditions. Barbados and St. Lucia both had over 40-mile-an-hour winds yesterday, and we could have some wind gusts in the ABC Islands close to that the next couple days as well. But as far as wrapping it up into anything potentially tropical, not seeing that on the board at least until probably Wednesday. Good morning from Palm Coast. Northeast side, Flagler County, Palm Coast in the house. Good morning. Timothy says, good morning from New Orleans. Staying with you this season, doing us all great service. Appreciate it, Timothy. Thank you very much. Paula says, good morning from Norway. I am from the Bahamas and really appreciate the info you provide. My pleasure, Paula. And welcome from Norway. Very awesome. And we'll keep an eye out on the Bahamas, I promise, as well. Candy says, good day. It's raining north side in Trinidad. Not sure for the rest of us. Stay dry. Appreciate you guys. And it's really awesome to hear from all of our friends across all of the areas we cover here at Meteo Mundo. Appreciate you guys taking a second to tune in here. Again, we have landfall of Hurricane Debby moving into the Big Bend area of Florida. I've mentioned the threats that I'm going to be watching here, and that's going to be an issue. So let me take myself off camera real fast, and we're going to go back over a few of the graphics as well. And again, if you live in some of these areas, you want to send me a picture or video, it's myMediaMundo@gmail.com. So this is the 5 a.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center, okay? And the numbers haven't changed. Winds are 80, northeast at 10. Pressure is, I believe, 979 millibars. So Debby was able to drop below 980 millibars. The big issue is that as Debby gets into southeast Georgia, it starts to really slow down, okay? Notice there are tropical storm warnings that are currently in effect right now for Georgia and South Carolina as well. But Debby really begins to put on the brakes because the steering currents fall apart. I mentioned that in the last couple of videos. It's actually a northeast wind. And so as Debby tries to move northeast, the winds are going in the completely opposite direction, and then now Debby stalls. And this is a huge issue because that means that this area could see some extremely heavy rainfall. And I mean some extremely heavy rainfall. And notice that even into Saturday morning, okay, Saturday morning, it's only into the central sides of North Carolina. So for our friends in Georgia and South Carolina, it's a big problem when it comes to the flood potential. The storm surge is ongoing through portions of the Big Bend and the Nature Coast of Florida. 6 to 10 feet of storm surge, guys. Think about a 6 foot tall person, add an extra 4 feet to them, and that's the potential peak storm surge that some of the Big Bend and Nature Coast areas could see. All the way down towards Yankeetown, 4 to 6, down towards Chassahowiska, and then 3 to 5, all the way into the Tampa Bay. Now, down towards Tampa Bay, we already mentioned that they still have a south wind. Their peak storm surge should have already happened, okay? But that being said, it's been some pretty good inundation of water in these areas. And then down the road for coastal Georgia and South Carolina, from the mouth of the St. Mary's River north to the South Santee River, you're looking at 2 to 4 foot storm surge. That's going to be a big problem down the road as well. This is a graphic that is not fun to talk about. The opportunity for extremely heavy rainfall and flash flooding in these spots. You're looking at, again, from the Hurricane Center, 10 to 20 inches of rain possible, maybe even up to 30 inches of rain. That would be some unbelievable rain coming into those areas. 10 to 20 inches, okay? For those of you who are on the metric system, 10 inches of rain is 250 millimeters. So they're talking about 250 to maybe 750 millimeters of rain over the next 5 days. 250 to 750 millimeters of rain in the next 5 days. 10 to 30 inches of rain. Catastrophic and historic. And that is obviously something I'll be keeping an eye on. But for our friends in Southeast Georgia and South Carolina, the coastal areas of South Carolina, please check in with your local governments, your local officials, city emergency managers, weather service offices. to make sure that you have the updated information. If this plays out the way it might, the rainfall is going to be so significant that the flooding could be so widespread. You know, again, Debbie's a two-part storm. It's the landfall now with the winds, the problems along the Big Bend, the storm surge, the severe weather potential for the peninsula of Florida. But starting tomorrow, we transition into what could be a major flood threat for portions of southeast Georgia and South Carolina as well. Get back over here to live radar. I put on the GFS rainfall totals. Here's the crazy thing about this, guys, is when I query this, let me go back over here, full screen. This particular product stops at 14 inches, okay, over the next 5 days. And I just want you to notice how widespread, look, even here near landfall, Cross City, Lake City, a foot of rain, Valdosta, a foot of rain. But more than likely, it's going to be even worse than this, okay? This is like minimums, because again, the model data I use here doesn't go higher than 14 inches over a 5-day period. But you get the idea. It's the same swath, right? So the GFS is playing this out in that same fashion, where southeast Georgia, coastal South Carolina, and we mentioned the far southern areas of North Carolina towards Wilmington, could all be in that 10 to 20 inch rainfall totals. I think it's going to be more localized to get above 20, but good Lord, we're talking about 20 inches of rain. Unbelievable. Again, guys, while you're here, appreciate you liking this live stream. If you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo, thank you for clicking that subscribe button for you right now. Appreciate you. Let's bring up, go over here. We said we look at the HER model as far as what this thing is going to do. Bring up the HER model. This is the high resolution rapid refresh. It updates hourly, okay? So love to look at this because it's going to give us a very high resolution idea of what might be happening. Let me bring on the model timestamp. So we're going to get a good idea here from the HER as to Debbie's evolution over the next 48 hours, okay? It'll take just a second to load up here. And we'll start from the beginning and we'll just stair step it, take our time nice and easy here. So, HER pretty much on. I have this at 6 a.m., so if we bump it up to 7, you know, the HER was basically right on with where landfall was. Now again, this is 9 in the morning. I want you to notice how wet still North Central Florida is, even back down towards Orlando in the I-4 corridor. And you see this squall lines coming in. There's going to be extremely heavy rainfall, and these storms are still going to be spinning. So there's still going to be that opportunity for some severe weather, tornadic activity, very heavy rainfall, flooding potential for this entire area through at least the morning hours. And as you go farther north, well into the afternoon. We start to see this expand north and east. Obviously, you know, by 3 o'clock, Debbie has now been on shore for 8 hours. So we are going to start to lose the signature, right? We can still see where the center of Debbie is. This is going to be very typical of a landfalling system where a lot of the heaviest convection gets pulled north and east in that direction. But also notice too that the storms off the coast are quite prominent. There's going to be moisture trying to feed back from the western Atlantic off the coast of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina and try and come back into the storm. And one of the biggest questions will be, does the center of Debbie, which on the HER models right here, actually get back offshore? Notice that it has it coming right over Savannah as we get into early tomorrow morning. And then trying to maybe pull its way back off. Notice that the convection is now stronger here because that center is trying to go right off of the Savannah coastline. And there's your spin right there. Notice how widespread all that heavy rain is, guys. And notice how it hasn't moved much. So that's the full loop over the next 48 hours from that HRRR model. And it's pretty much spot on with what the Hurricane Center has as far as the track. And you can see that these spiral bands are just coming right back on shore. It's going to be a big, big problem, unfortunately. Because again, Debby is not going to be moving very quickly, if much at all. Let me give you an idea. It's 12 hours. It's not good. They have Debby moving 10, 15 miles in 12 hours. Where's my spatial tool? This might be, I've seen it spin around before, right? But yeah, about 15 miles of movement in 12 hours. Not going to be fun. You get the idea that the Hurricane Center just says, hey, look, it's going to be stalling out. Here it's got winds of 60 gusting to 70. Here, 50 gusting to 63 or so. But again, that's a 12-hour difference. So our friends in this area need to really start be paying attention to the potential for that extremely, extremely significant flooding. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. Let me make sure. I feel like I'm not getting the latest chat here. There we go. Roberto says, good morning from Zephyr Hills. Good morning to you. Pure Stacy says, good morning from Mandeville, Jamaica in the house. Appreciate you there. Good morning from St. Kitts and Nevis. Dominican Republic. Good morning. John says, good morning from the West Bank of New Orleans. Good morning, John. Hendrik Arnar says, good morning from reigning Aruba. Samuel says, what's going on in the Bahamas? Well, the Bahamas could see a few scattered showers still being pulled in with these south winds, right? Some of these bands could still work their way through. It's not going to be consistent. You're not going to have tropical storm conditions that are consistent, but there will still be some squally weather, especially in the far northwest Bahamas over the next couple days. Walker's Key and Freeport and Abaco and Bimini and New Providence and Eleuthera and Andros, all with that opportunity. Still even a little bit of rain trying to feed in through the central side of the Bahamas as well. Okay, and you can kind of see that last band, if this model really plays out, the HRRR model, could even bring some heavier rain into Tuesday and early on Wednesday as well. But not as consistent and persistent in the northwest Bahamas. But still could be kicking up sea conditions. Small craft advisories could be in effect still as well. Claudette says, very windy and raining in Lakeland, winds getting stronger. If you send us a video, Claudette, it might just be depending on the length, but give it a shot. Appreciate you. Yeah, John says, nothing to steer. Looks like it's already moving, losing momentum. I think it's going to be a gradual thing this morning, John, but the winds are already beginning to turn out of the northeast ahead of the storm. So that is going to start to put on the brakes, no doubt about it. I think it really will start to stall in about 24 hours. There'll still be some forward speed here, at least through tomorrow morning. But then after that, the steering currents, it's not as, I want to be clear about this too. It's not as if the steering currents go slack. Is that the steering currents are in the complete opposite direction of where Debby wants to go, north and east. This trough has pulled away. High pressure is building back in, right? And this ridge is so dominant through the United States Southeast that we're on the eastern periphery of it. So we're getting the clockwise winds, and that's all northeast winds along the eastern seaboard here, and it's just fighting Debby. And that's the problem. And until that ridge relaxes and pushes back west and opens up an alley for Debby to go to, That's why it's going to stay in one spot for a long time. So it's more about the fact that this ridge is basically providing a blockade rather than the steering currents have just gone to nil. It's just the wrong wind direction, just fighting the wrong winds. Let me loop up the GFS model. I'll just extend this out in time. Again, the HER only goes out 48 hours, but it updates hourly, so I love to use it with landfalling systems like this because we get that real-time information. The HER picks up on exactly what's happening right now and then, spits out some very, very, available data and something I can really rely on over the next 48 hours. The GFS is running right now, and you can see that. And again, just notice that even if Debby becomes a mess, right, and there's no true big center of circulation left over, that all the way until, and today is the 5th, right? So all the way to Friday, I did set this up correctly, all of this rain that sits over Georgia, South Carolina, portions of North Carolina, that's just going to be the big problem there eventually down the road. And again, I've shown you the GFS rainfall totals, which are well over a foot up this corridor, but that probably is the minimum because again, it only goes up to 14 inches on this product. Ed, we're doing well, and it's because of you and others like you. I appreciate it. It's been a while since we only had 10 subscribers, but I really do appreciate all the support, guys, and it's been heartwarming, to be quite honest. And I appreciate all the well wishes. I appreciate all the support, and I just appreciate all the nice things you guys have had to say. Lyric, I'll give you a quick update in the Caribbean in just 1 second. You got it. Claudette's watching from the Bahamas. Oh, I'm sorry, from Jamaica. Apologies. Carol says, good morning from Charleston. Carol, we wish you the best. Charleston's an area that's going to have to really watch out for the potential for flooding here over the next few days. Keith says, trees down, very windy, no electric. Silver A says, good morning from Apollo Beach, Florida. That's along the West Coast. Good morning. Can you tell me how the weather is in Lecanto, please? Lecanto, Citrus County. Sure. So give me just 1 second here, guys. Actually, let me get back over to the real-time data. So look, all of the peninsula of Florida will have the opportunity for tropical storm conditions the remainder of this morning and into the early afternoon. Now, Lecanto is inland in Citrus County, but not too far inland, right about here. Obviously, we're going to see some very heavy wind there. Still the opportunity, I would say, of up to 50+ mile-an-hour gusts. Not going to be sustained, right? Crystal River's a little bit over 30 from time to time. Eventually, later in the morning and into the early afternoon, the winds should begin to calm down a bit, at least as far as the sustained winds, but we're still going to get some squalls to move in. And from time to time, we'll get a 45, 50 mile-an-hour wind gust and the opportunity for, again, an isolated tornado threat. If you guys are just tuning in, we have a tornado watch that's in effect for basically the vast majority of the peninsula of Florida and into southeast Georgia as well. That's the that's the infrared satellite presentation for you here. Let me drop that off real quick. Bring on the tornado watch right here. This entire area is under a tornado watch at this point in time. They did cut off part of the western side of that tornado watch because of where Debby made landfall. If you're just tuning in as well, Debby made this little jog east right at the very end over the last 6 hours. If I bring on the radar data, I'm going to get back on my timestamp here. There was this, right around midnight, there was this big blow up of thunderstorms on the eastern side, the eastern eye wall, which kind of tugged Debby slightly east. Just a little bit, but slightly off towards the east. So landfall was a little bit earlier this morning because of it, because it wasn't coming up closer to Apalachicola Bay. Landfall was just before 7 a.m. near Steinhatchee. Again, this is not an extremely populated area of the Gulf Coast of Florida, which is good news, but there are management areas like Steinhatchee, there are fishing camps, there are pockets of populated areas here. So it's not like it's completely devoid of either camps where people go and fish and enjoy the coastline, or folks who actually live along the coast full time. It's not a large population center in any one location. That's good news. But the impacts are significant. You can see that the Gainesville winds are up to around 50 miles an hour. We've had now a 52 mile an hour wind gust here on the south side of Jacksonville as these squall lines have come in. So you get the idea, guys, that well away from the center of circulation, even along the East Coast, we're picking up some winds that are over 50 miles an hour. Glenn says, good morning from Georgetown, South Carolina. Good morning to you. Delene says in Valdosta, just picking up right now. Yep, there's Valdosta there across I-75. Glenn says, thank you. Strengthen when she goes out the Atlantic. I don't know if she'll strengthen, Glenn. I think it'll be one of those things where, if anything, we don't want to see the center move back offshore because it will be able to tap into the warmer waters here, obviously, and it just might be able to hold on a little bit longer, right? More moisture in general, just kind of feeding back into the system if the center of circulation can pop in. Give me just 1 second here, guys. My wife just woke up and I was telling her, I was like, you're not driving into work this morning, are you? And she's like, no. We live in Central Florida, so we are deep into this. And I hope that other employers will be kind and not force their employees to come into work as well. It's a really rough day. Look, we've got 40, 50 mile an hour winds and this heavy rainfall. And again, it's for a lot of Central and Northern Florida. She's also getting me coffee. She's also getting me coffee. So I'm extremely grateful. Good morning, guys. Good morning, William from Leesburg. Appreciate you. Terry says, good morning, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, one block off the beach. Terry, please pay very, very close attention to your emergency management officials, local government, National Weather Service office there as to local messaging for what you might need to be doing in Myrtle Beach over the next few days. Could be a very, very dangerous and serious situation there. Mildred says, nice weather in Antigua. That's good to hear. Roblox Gamer says a lot of flooding in Columbia, South Carolina is possible. Maybe not as far inland as Columbia, but it's a possibility, right? It's going to be hard, guys, to talk about specific areas of Southeast Georgia, Carolinas that could see the heaviest rain, but this entire area has that opportunity, right? That's going to play out in the finer details over the next few days. But the bottom line is, with Debby not moving much, that opportunity is there, unfortunately. So we have to watch that very, very prominently here. Edward says, pleasant good morning. Heavy rains in Trinidad and Tobago right now. Light gusts at intervals. Thank you very much, Edward. William says, good morning. I think I already got that one. Thank you. Nisa says, I work for Hillsborough County School System. All Hillsborough County employees have to go in today. Well, hopefully, Anissa, the weather will get better there in Hillsborough County through the day. It's rough right now, though. There's no doubt about it. Hillsborough County is Tampa, and you can see the winds that are still there. Again, I'm just, I would certainly not be one to be saying this is what, employers need to do. But when you look at the scenario here in Central and North Central Florida, obviously traveling is not going to be ideal, right? So hopefully those employers that have the opportunity to allow their employees to stay home might choose that path. Okay, says, good morning from Dominica. I appreciate you too. And again, thank you to all of my friends across the Caribbean who are tuning in. I'm going to grab my coffee real quick. It's just right here. And good morning to everyone as well. Cheers. That hits the spot. So again, look at all this wind. And we'll have to watch out for this rotation too. Again, tornadoes are still a possibility. If you guys are joining me, thank you again for hitting that like button. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo as well. Let's go back over to the broad perspective, because we do have a lot of friends who are tuning in from different parts of the Caribbean. Now, don't want to pat myself too much on the back, but I've been saying since yesterday that I don't expect this wave to develop until it gets into the Central Caribbean. Yesterday and even early this morning, the Hurricane Center actually had this yellow area all the way into the Windward Islands. So what that means is they thought that this could develop anywhere within that area in yellow. Notice that as of the 5 a.m. update, that they now have the line, and then the yellow development area doesn't begin until the Central Caribbean west of the ABC Islands. This is what I was trying to say over the last day, is that I don't expect this wave to become a tropical depression or anything more than that. The quickest potential is in the central sides of the Caribbean, okay? So in the here and now, for the Lesser Antilles, we have waves of rain in very gusty conditions. Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada. This is going to be a squally day. Fresh east winds. Yesterday, St. Lucia and Barbados had over 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts as this wave began to move through. Still going to be some downpours. Fair amount of lightning here. You can see there's some lightning strikes. This is our live lightning count here at Meteo Mundo. And this wave is tracking fairly far to the south. Now, as is typical, some of the moisture will build north and into the Leeward Islands. We're going to get some rain later today in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands as well. My friends of the ABC Islands that have been talking about this rain, here it is. You can see it beginning to skirt some of the islands, right? A little bit of lightning along with this as well. But as I've mentioned, this is just the beginning. There is additional moisture coming in, and the ABC Islands, which has been an area that has been really dry lately, has the opportunity for some good, healthy rain over the next 24 to 48 hours as this entire wave moves through. Now, down the road, as we get into about Wednesday, is when I'll start to really be paying attention to how this might try and wrap up here in the Central Caribbean, where maybe places more directly impacted could be Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, portions of Central America, the Yucatan, and then into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. If this is trying to just develop here, that means it's not going to be strong near Jamaica or maybe even the Cayman Islands, but this could start to develop here. All right, so look, we're not going to have a higher end tropical storm more than likely or anything like that near Jamaica on Wednesday or Thursday, but it's the beginning of what could be a developing system as I head towards the Yucatan. And we'll get more into details coming up later in today's video and others about what this might be doing as far as potential tracks. But this is the next area, guys, where we could have some development. So almost kind of pleased to see that the Hurricane Center decided to knock off the eastern side of the Caribbean for the development. It's just tracking the wave with this line, and then the yellow area is when it could actually wrap up. And again, we're in August, guys. Another big old tropical wave coming off the West African coast. That one will be buried and watching as well. Now that we're into August, all of these waves coming off the coast of Africa into the main development region of the Atlantic will bear very, very vigilant watching. It's going to be, I believe, a very active August, a very active remainder of the hurricane season. Again, you know, we saw how quickly Debby became a hurricane moving up the west coast of Florida. Good morning from Dominica. If you guys want to try and send us a video, if one of my moderators could put in, I'm not signed into YouTube. I was actually having issues. myMediamundo@gmail.com. All one word, myMediamundo@gmail.com. And you guys can even make that, you guys can even pen that as well if you want to. Dee says, good morning from Avon Park. Raining a bunch, a bit windy, overall not bad here. Love your channel. Thank you very much, Dee. Appreciate you tuning in. And good morning. Probably like a fair amount of you, I'm having a little bit of coffee, keeping it going here, waking myself up a little bit. And again, thanks for hitting the like button, guys. I appreciate you very much while you're here. It's going to take 1 second, rest my voice slightly, not much. Let's get back over to the tornado threat. Again, you guys can see that inherent spin with these storms. There is no tornado warnings right now. So far, I will have to say, as far as the tornado potential, Debby is behaving, right? Debby's behaving right now so far. We had a couple tornado warnings earlier in the morning, but so far we're doing okay. Now, what also happens in these scenarios is this. When these storms start having more rotation, I can promise you this, the Weather Service offices will begin to fire off numerous tornado warnings at once, because these storms are going to be moving at 40 and 50 miles an hour, and they're not going to even, wait around. They're going to see a little bit of rotation, and they're going to fire off the tornado warnings. The numbers that you see on your screen, if you're just tuning in, are wind gusts in miles an hour. And notice again how strong the winds are all the way down the I-4 corridor into Tampa, St. Pete. Obviously, the strongest winds are going to be up here. Jacksonville now up to a 50-mile-an-hour wind. We had a friend in Valdosta say it's picking up there, up to 40. Lake City, I believe that was Keith, if I'm not mistaken, talking about that it's very windy and no electric. So again, we've had Debby push on shore, kind of near Dixie-Levy counties, near Steinhatchee, if you know where that is, north of Horseshoe Beach. South of there, you can see that rotation and that spin coming in. Cedar Key, area south to the Nature Coast, Crystal River, Homosassa. Big time storm surge here towards Chaskawiska areas south and east. Remember, again, with a landfalling hurricane like this, obviously you have north winds on the west side, so Apalachicola Bay was spared from the greatest storm surge. There'll be a little bit of a push of water, but again, the winds are coming out of the north on the west side, so the winds are actually trying to push the water back out, even though the storm itself is bringing some water with it. Unfortunately, on the east side, you have the water push and the winds going in the same direction, and that's where you have the greatest inundation of water. So storm surge has been a big issue up and down the west coast of Florida, and these winds are actually still pushing water into Tampa Bay. These are still southwest winds. You can see that feeding in. And so we'll transition from the storm surge threat to the wind threat for north central Florida. Power outages abound, more than likely. Driving I-75, I-10, no good, obviously, too. And then eventually, as Debby gets into southeast Georgia, late tonight and especially overnight, beginning to really slow down, and that's when the big time flood potential comes in. But don't get me wrong, north central Florida could have up to a foot of rain, and there could be some big time trouble spots there to go along with the flood. Where it says we have a lot of wind in southeast Dominica. Ed says, I would call winter garden blustery and dreary as Debby moves across the state. Will it go downhill? Ed, for central Florida in general, I think it's going to be about this kind of weather the remainder of the morning hours. It will pick up time to time in the squalls. And all you have to do, if you just look at one area, you notice that the winds are going up and down. These are the bands, these feeder bands coming on shore, right? And as the feeder bands move across your area, your winds are going to spike to 40, 45 miles an hour in gusts for a time. And then there'll be a lull in the action for a little bit. And then the next feeder band will come in with a burst of heavy rain and stronger winds. I don't think in Orange County, Winter Garden is on the western side of the Orlando metro area, that you're going to get consistent tropical storm conditions, but tropical storm gusts are likely through the morning hours. Now, when we get up towards Marion County, which is Ocala, and Alachua County, which is Gainesville and the University of Florida, and then up into Jacksonville and north, these are the areas that will have the more consistent tropical storm conditions, not only for the morning hours, but well into the afternoon hours as well. May says, hello from Denmark. Hello as well. Shaw says, lots of rain and gusty winds here in Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, that's that tropical wave moving in. Again, not developing, but going to have some bursts of heavy rain, gusty winds there as well. In general, what I was looking at was around 25 to 50 millimeters of rain. That's 1 to 2 inches through the Windward Islands, but there'll be some locally higher amounts. Could there be some isolated flooding? It's a possibility, but I don't think it's going to be widespread. And most of you have said, Rusty, it's beneficial rain. We'll take it. Hopefully you don't get too much in too short of an amount of time. So we're coming up on 8 o'clock, and that is going to be the next intermediate advisory from the Hurricane Center. They put out a 7 o'clock statement. They have not put out an 8. I can say that for the area in the Caribbean, it is up to a 30% chance of development over the next 7 days. But again, not going to develop in the next 48 hours, okay? So down the road through this week, I'll be keeping a really close eye on that tropical wave traversing the Caribbean from east to west. And again, that could be the next potential. So very shortly, we'll get the 8 o'clock update here from the Hurricane Center. Pouring again at the house as well. Good morning, Alvin. How are you? Maria says, good morning from sunny Nueva Esparta. Awesome. Island off of the coast of Venezuela. Good morning, Maria. Thank you for tuning in. Devin says, good morning from Savannah, Georgia, sitting at 14 feet above sea level. We did not flood at our house during Hurricane Irma, which is kind of a benchmark, right, Devin? I mean, Irma, big benchmark in that area. Hopefully we have another good outcome. Thanks for the great information. You're welcome, Devin, and we absolutely wish you the best. 14 feet is pretty significant. That is, well over 100 inches. So 14 feet is good. When our home flooded out in Crystal River, we were 9.5 feet, and we got about 6 inches of water. So we had about 10 feet. So I can't even imagine another 4. So hopefully, Devin, that's good for you. But again, I am highly concerned about the amount of rain that coastal South Carolina is going to get. Let's see. Let me bring back on the Tallahassee radar, only because, and drop off the base reflectivity. From time to time while we're talking here, I need to be keeping an eye out on these winds. And let me point this out to you guys, what I'm looking for here, okay? This is the live radar out of Tallahassee, Florida. This is what's called the velocity product. I'm actually looking at the winds being generated by this storm and by Debby and by the showers and storms that are coming in. Obviously, we have counterclockwise rotation, cyclonic flow. Notice that embedded within this, we have some areas of red and green that are close to each other. Those are winds that are actually moving in opposite directions. These would be the spots that we would have to look out for potential quick tornadoes. Typically with landfalling hurricanes like this, we have the inherent rotation. We could have brief funnels or tornadoes, all right? I can tell you this right now. In this area, there's a lot of what I call SLCs, scary looking clouds. Low base, fingers kind of hanging down, roll features to them. It's a storm chaser's delight, but you don't want to see this coming into your area. And at any point in time, one of these could drop down very briefly. These are not long track tornadoes within this environment. They might touch down for literally 50 or 100 yards and come back up. There could be just wind damage in a larger, broader field with this as well. But again, when the Weather Service offices who issue the tornado warnings, of course, I don't do any of that, just pass along the information. When they pop up, we track them for you live. When they issue those, These storms are moving at around 40, 50 miles an hour. So they're going to not last for long in duration, but the Shreveport, Louisiana office with Hurricane Beryl that moved inland in Texas, but all the really bad weather was east in Louisiana. I think they had over 100 tornado warnings in just one day. So each storm is different as to the tornado potential it brings. I have seen extremely high-end hurricanes come on shore and produce no tornadic activity. I've seen weaker tropical storms produce numerous tornadoes. It really is very storm dependent. And I don't think there's really a lot that you can put your thumb on and say, this storm is going to produce more tornadic activity. It's something that I keep a very vigilant eye on here because at any point in time, we could start to see there being more rotation. So that's what that product allows me to do. O'Brien says, good morning here, few showers in Barbados. Good morning to you, O'Brien. Hope things are well there for our friends in Barbados. Valdosta's winds are up to 50 miles an hour. And you see that big plume of red, guys? And those brighter reds are stronger winds. And that's exactly what we see here on the Tallahassee radar. Look at those bright winds getting into Valdosta. Winds are now over 50 miles an hour. So it's picking up. And look, 50 miles an hour, it's going to knock down some tree limbs. It's going to cause some power problems. Any unsecured objects in the yard are going to get tossed around with that, right? If it's trash day, all the trash cans are going to be meeting at the bottom of the hill. So no good there. And we've already had the reports of power outages there in Live Oak. Weather going downhill in places like Jacksonville. We can there it is. Switch over to the Jacksonville radar. Great news is we have a very dense network of radar sites in this area. And so now with this one, again, reds are going away from the radar, greens are going towards. And you can see there's a lot of wind right now in this area in southeast Georgia, east of Valdosta. So we're picking up over 50 here on the radar. Look at that. That's, you know, we're getting nearly 60 mile an hour winds near Jasper, which is very far North Florida. Big push of wind here too, right through Jacksonville and Stark and Keystone Heights. Again, so what's really cool is we have a ground truth report out of the METAR site in Keystone Heights of 45. My radar is showing 49. So it shows you that, you know, this is basically the radar is estimating these winds correctly. It's a lot of wind that's going to be trying to come back up towards Jacksonville in the I-10 corridor. .45, 50 mile an hour winds, higher gusts. Look at the reflectivity. So now from the Jacksonville radar, we can really see all of that heavier rain spreading back into southeast Georgia already. So just want to get off of that. Okay. And again, the Jacksonville radar will be a great one to watch out for the rotation within some of these storms. Even at the hour, Orlando is reporting a 35 mile an hour wind gust. Leesburg has a 40. How about this, guys? Here in the St. Pete Pinellas Park area, Largo, still a 50 mile an hour wind gust, 48. We'll go up to 50 though. Has some unbelievable wind still a couple hundred miles south of where Debby is moving inland. Again, if you guys are here, I appreciate you. Thank you for liking the live stream. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo. Thank you for all the support as well. I appreciate that. Again, winds are beginning to pump up a bit here, guys. 54 in Jacksonville, 51 in Valdosta. The 8 o'clock advisory should be coming in here from the Hurricane Center. There we go. Okay. So, let's read this together. Winds are now 75, still considered to be a hurricane, moving northeast at 10. So that has not changed. Pressure at 979 millibars, that hasn't changed. So the only difference, and I'll update this in just a second, but the only difference from the 5 o'clock advisory is that Debbie's winds are now 75. Still a hurricane as it moves inland. And my weather computer will pick up on the new everything. Now, this is the 8 a.m. advisory. It's an intermediate advisory. There is no change to the track in the intermediate advisories. The next track update will be at 11 a.m., okay? This is a position change update, and then the latest stats from Debbie's update. But as far as the 5-day cone goes, no track change in the intermediate advisories. Those are 5 a.m., 11 a.m., 5 p.m., 11 p.m. So, hurricane warning still continues for Yankeetown to Indian Pass. Tropical storm warning. Still on the west side, and then now on the east side, and you notice that my system has picked it up. If I drop the radar off just real quickly so you guys can see it a little bit easier, the tropical storm warning now goes down to St. Augustine. So it's St. Augustine to South Santee River, South Carolina, okay? So they've extended it a little bit farther south, and here's the reason why. Jacksonville is saying tropical storm conditions, so I agree with them. So they've just extended this tropical storm warning down. Now, this includes inland areas as well, but obviously my weather computer is picking up on where they're talking about the coastal regions, but it's now into Florida, south into St. Augustine. Let's see here. A storm surge warning. So we're talking about water inundation via storm surge. Still continues for Longboat Key northward to Indian Pass, including Tampa Bay. So it's crazy, right? That down here, there's still a storm surge warning because we talked about how these are still southwest winds. Look, METAR report as of 8 o'clock. These are still southwest winds in Tampa Bay, okay? Southwest wind, let me bring that back on so you guys can see, at 48 miles an hour. All of this water is getting pushed right up Tampa Bay. It's the orientation of the bay. A southwest wind is horrible because it pushes all of that water up. And if you live in Tampa or you know that, places like South Tampa, they just flood imminently with these southwest winds. So it's a big problem all the way down into Tampa Bay, well away from where Debbie is moving inland. This is one reason why also, guys, that we never talk about that center line and that the impacts are felt well far away from that center. And then the storm surge warning is now going to be in effect for the Georgia and South Carolina coastlines from the mouth of the St. Mary's River to South Santee River. So storm surge warning for those areas. 2 to 4 foot storm surge here. I think based on what Debbie ends up doing, whether it comes back offshore or whether it stays inland, those numbers could fluctuate. But for right now, mouth of the St. Mary's to the South Santee River, 2 to 4 foot storm surge. Rainfall totals in Florida, and I'll bring back on the radar here now that we're done kind of talking about those coastal conditions. Rainfall totals in Florida, 6 to 12, a maximum up to 18. Now the 18 is going to be like up in here. And it's not going to fall all today, but today through tomorrow, we could have those kinds. 6 to 12 inches is possible in Jacksonville and Gainesville and Live Oak and Jasper and places like that. As you go farther north and east, these totals, unfortunately, are forecast to go higher and higher. And the National Hurricane Center is still talking about southeast Georgia, the coastal plain of South Carolina, and southeast North Carolina 10 to 20 inches of rainfall, locally up to 30 inches of rainfall through Saturday morning. Official messaging, not my interpretation. Official messaging is also this. This potentially historic rainfall will likely result in areas of catastrophic flooding. Unfortunately, this is going to be a big problem for these areas and the amount of rain that they could see as well. I think we all know that the swells and the surf are going to be extremely elevated in this kind of scenario as well. So that's the 8 a.m. advisory. We do have one tornado warning. And again, look how far away this is, guys. Let me get you the information on this. We want to cover everyone. That does look to be Polk County again. It's going to be in the central part of the state. Let me endeavor to bring up the Tampa radar. Just 1 second here, guys. Apologies for being a little bit quiet, but okay. I wanted to make sure we track this tornado warning. So this is the Tampa radar. It's just the closest radar site to this tornado warning. And this was just issued. Goes for the next 25 minutes. It does include Winter Haven, Haines City, Davenport, Polk City. All right. Now again, look at all of this embedded thunderstorm activity. It's almost hard to pick out on the reflectivity. If I switch over to the velocity product, we can see that there's a lot of wind, and you notice right here, just right there. Remember I told you I'm looking for reds and greens next to each other? There's just this little sliver, which looks like we have right here. Sorry about that. So Eagle Lake and Winter Haven and Inwood, but that's what I'm looking at for right there. And these signals may be brief. They may not be the most prominent, but that's what the Weather Service offices are looking for. And look at this wind. Look at that wind right there. Even if this is not a funnel or a tornado, that is 60+ mile-an-hour winds coming into this area, just west of Winter Haven there. Goes until 8:30. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. And again, moving northeast at 40 miles an hour. And this is what I told you guys. These storms are going to be moving so fast, and they're going to be embedded with some heavy rain and squalls, that the Weather Service offices are just going to be quickly issuing these tornado warnings. The storm's going to be moving so rapidly here. Now, they have it going for the next 23 minutes till 8:30. If they see that the rotation has weakened, they'll cancel that warning. But it's not going to shock me, again, if we just start getting more numerous ones. Winter Haven, Haines City, Auburndale, all included in that. So there you go. And again, I don't see a lot of, we have pinks and reds, so these are all winds going in the same direction, but the winds are significant, 65 miles an hour. We'll see if this Auburndale site picks up a stronger wind here. That was an earlier report of 31. but you get the idea. And there's a lot of very strong winds in general in this part. Again, well away from the center of circulation. So you get the idea, guys, again, that severe weather impacts from Debby are likely well away from the center of circulation through a lot of the north central and central portions of Florida this morning. Keep a close eye on that storm. Thank you, Yvonne. Appreciate you. Good morning, Wilfred. How are you? Watching from Belize. We got you covered. I promise you that. And again, thanks for tuning in, guys. If you're just tuning in, we had landfall of Debby at around just before 7 a.m. this morning. Debby is going to continue to bring the opportunity for some extremely heavy rain, flooding concerns, tropical storm conditions through a lot of Florida, and again, the potential for some severe weather as we're seeing well away from the center. That storm is a couple hundred miles south of where Debby is moving inland right now in Polk County, Florida. And you can just see that natural spin. The numbers that you see on your screen, those are wind gusts. So 45, 50 mile an hour wind gusts. And they're going to be sticking around as well. It's going to be a situation where the weather is not going to be improving in a lot of these areas until deep into the afternoon hours. And again, flooding is a concern all the way down towards Tampa Bay right now as well. To give you an idea of where the center of Debby is, made landfall just before 7 a.m. near Steinhatchee, there in the Big Bend area, just kind of north of the Nature Coast, and moving in. Again, there's not a big population center where Debby made landfall. That's great news. But there are clusters of population, fishing camps, places like that, some permanent residents there, but again, nothing of a high concentration. But that being said, obviously, there's still some structures in some areas that could have significant damage from a Category 1 hurricane that has moved through. We start to see that move inland now towards Perry and Mayo and Branford. If you notice, towards Gainesville, they've had from time to time winds of over 50 miles an hour. Keystone Heights is getting up to 50 mile an hour winds as well. And the Jacksonville area, if you see that sensor there just north of what's called Lakeside, that hit over 50 miles an hour and is currently in at 47. So very sustained tropical storm conditions are going to be moving into the north central part of Florida, the far northeast part of Florida, and then south central and southeast Georgia through the remainder of this Monday. Still behind it again, you have all these feeder bands coming in with the opportunity for some strong to severe storms and even that isolated tornado threat as well. Let's look at the satellite imagery. Again, there is a huge blowup of thunderstorms on the east side of Debby right around midnight, and it kind of tugged the eye slightly east, just a little bit east at the end. So Debby's been kind of more on a north-northeast track over the last 8 hours or so than rather due north. It's basically the main reason why, instead of landfall in Apalachicola Bay, it happened here kind of far northern sides of Levy County. And then kind of into Dixie County, north and east here. And again, on the west side of the storm, these are all north winds for Tallahassee, Port St. Joe, Panama, City Beach. On this side, it's all going to be southwest winds and kind of more out of the east here, east to southeast, up in the Jacksonville, Palm Coast area. But very, very fresh winds regardless. Water vapor imagery. You can already see, and again, in this view, greens and blues are your deeper, richer water vapor, moisture content in the atmosphere that is already spreading up through the coastal portions of the Carolinas. There is some drier air west. It did impinge Debby slightly on the western side. So the extent of Debby off towards the west is not nearly as significant, and this will be playing a factor as this ridge builds in. The moisture, and Debby, of course, getting on shore right now, the friction, the land interaction, Debby will start to kind of blow its top a little bit here, but the core center of circulation is forecast to hold on. And as Debby emerges off the coastline of Georgia here, as we get into Wednesday, and potentially stays offshore for a 24-hour period, this should allow, I'm not sure we're going to get a lot of regeneration, but this should allow Debby to hold its strength, but more than anything, pull more moisture back into this area. And it, again, is going to transition into a extreme flood threat potential. Right now, it is storm surge, it is wind, it is severe weather potential to go along with the potential flooding, but then it really transitions into a flood potential for southeast Georgia, portions of coastal Carolina, both north and south, but mainly South Carolina, at least as of now. Could that change? Absolutely, depending on where Debby sets up, how quickly it wants to move. So again, we still have this tornado warning here. And I told you that that Auburndale site had a 31 mile an hour wind. Now they have a 41 mile an hour wind. Tornado warning is in effect for the next 16 minutes till 8:30. Again, this is Polk County, Florida. Delaney says, so far not bad in Valdosta. Winds 21, light rain on and off. You must be in a slightly different area from this site, I will say that. I think Valdosta had 48. So it just shows you, though, how area dependent it is, right? The site that's just south of Valdosta has had a 48 mile an hour wind, but Delaney, who lives there, says 21. So it is area dependent. But in general, the winds will be picking up into South Georgia here as we roll through the remainder of the morning hours. Again, this is the what's called velocity look at the radar. It's where I can interrogate, if you will, the radar and its winds. So I'm looking for embedded rotation. And you notice all of these storms that are coming in have some rotation associated with them. So the opportunity for a brief tornado or funnel cloud is possible. The opportunity for a brief waterspout is possible as well. And again, winds all the way through central Florida will continue to be near tropical storm strength for the next couple of hours. Winds will get stronger into the north central part of the state as well. And again, be in that 45, 50 plus mile an hour range. Jeanette says, good morning, sunny here in Portland, Jamaica. That's great to hear. Monica is watching from Tobago, windy and overcast here. Wilford says, Belize sunny right now. Again, appreciate all my friends across the Caribbean and the Bahamas tuning in for our live coverage of Hurricane Debby, which has made landfall in the Big Bend of Florida. As a Category 1 hurricane, winds were 80 miles an hour when Debby moved inland. It is now still a Category 1 hurricane. Winds are 75 miles an hour at this point in time. We'll reset the scene for you here at 8:15. Again, we have Debby that is moving through the Big Bend of Florida. We've been talking about the hazards there. For my friends in the Caribbean, we do have this tropical wave. X marks the spot from the hurricane center. Now again, there is no signs of development with this tropical wave over the next couple of days. We are not going to have that happen over the Lesser Antilles, but it is bringing very breezy conditions and some quick downpours, some lightning, some gusty winds. St. Lucia, St. Vincent of the Grenadines, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. Many of you have thrown a comment in, and I appreciate that about what's been happening in this area. But, bursts of rain, lightning, and some gusty winds coming along for the ride with this. So far, it's been quiet in Nueva Esparta, but again, that rain will be trying to set in. Out ahead of it, we've actually had some rain for the ABC Islands. Very beneficial rain for our friends there on Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And again, this is kind of just the leading edge of that tropical moisture. There'll be more opportunities for rain in the ABC Islands over the next couple of days. This moisture will also spread north into the Leeward Islands, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Haiti. All will see their rain chances begin to improve as well over the next couple of days. And then again, the Hurricane Center has changed this a bit. Earlier this morning, this whole area was yellow because anywhere that you see that yellow polygon is a potential tropical development area. The Hurricane Center picked up on, I mentioned this in yesterday's video, that I didn't think that there was going to be any development until at least the central side of the Caribbean. Well, that's what we're now seeing. So over the next 7 days, but really starting by Wednesday in this area, we could see some slow, gradual development. It's now a 30% chance, okay? Again, for places like Jamaica, maybe towards the Cayman Islands, this would be just trying to get started here. So this would not be a stronger system, but a disturbance or a tropical depression, something like that, is plausible. And then it could get stronger as it gets into the Northwest Caribbean, potentially over the Yucatan, for northern sides of Central America towards Belize, and then into the Southwest Gulf of Mexico. Now look, this is kind of the first broad brush view. The models are divergent on where this might head as we get into next weekend. And obviously in the videos here that I'll be doing throughout the week, we'll be focusing a lot more in on this next potential tropical development area. But again, it's August, friends. We should expect there to see some yellows and oranges and reds here as far as development areas. Again, if I show you this very broad view and then zoom back in, there's another big wave coming off the West African coast right now that's going to bear watching. The main development region of the Atlantic is open for business. The Saharan dust has dissipated significantly. We're in that time of the year where these tropical waves coming off the West African coast are going to be watching each and every one of them very, very closely. The Pacific is a lot more active as well. Okay, you can see all those storms there in the Eastern Pacific. So we're in that time of the year, friends, where we're going to be talking about potentially numerous either ongoing tropical storms, hurricanes, or development regions. Thank you, Jolene. I-75X11, 11 miles from the Florida line. I appreciate you. Thank you for the information. Good morning, guys. Good morning from Trinidad. Appreciate you too. Thanks for all my friends in the Caribbean islands popping on and saying hi this morning. I appreciate you guys a lot. Again, live coverage of Hurricane Debby moving inland right now. Let's get back over to the radars. This is out of Tampa. Drop off the satellite data. That tornado warning is still in effect for the next 9 minutes. Now again, in this scenario, wouldn't expect that if it did touch down, that I would not expect it to last very long. But again, it's a situation for areas in Florida that are way away from the center of circulation that they could have some very significant impacts. Wind gusts over 41 there. We might get another update, could be even stronger. But you notice again that here's this huge squall line moving inland all the way down to Port Charlotte, way down here. And that could have some inherent rotation and spin to go along for the ride. Leesburg, 40-mile-an-hour wind still. Let's look how covered up that is, guys. A lot of rain for Florida in general today. And all that's pushing into Georgia and South Carolina. I don't see what I call a very tight couplet, meaning I would be looking on this product for areas of red and green close to each other. Near Auburndale right now, I don't see it. So hopefully, if there was a very, very brief tornado, it's no longer on the ground, and this warning will be allowed to expire at 8:30. As it moves up towards I-4, which is a very, very busy road here in Central Florida, hopefully not as busy today. Hopefully, folks, we're not required to go into work. And if you were, and you live in Central Florida, please be very, very cautious. Roads are going to be some ponding on the roadways, going to be the opportunity for some isolated flooding, and obviously driving in these kinds of winds are no fun. But that Tampa radar is just covered up. By the way, these rings that you see are from my radar system, the weather computer, which paints on the rings of the winds of Debby. The pinks are your hurricanes. and the purples are the stronger tropical storm force winds, and then the blues are the tropical storm force winds. It's kind of three different rings of intensity, if you will. It's 34, 50, and 64 knot winds. So all of this area is expected to have tropical storm force conditions. You get into the higher end tropical storm force winds in the purple, and the pink is your hurricane force winds. Alex says, hurricane coverage is better than the ones on the news. I appreciate you, Alex. Thanks for the kind words. Charles says, appreciate outstanding coverage of Hurricane Debby, watching from windy Nassau, Bahamas. Thank you very much, Charles. Appreciate you guys as well. Again, you want to do me a really quick favor, just hit the like button. That helps me out here and all of us at Meteo Mundo. So thank you for that support. Again, it means more than you think. Liking this live stream, obviously subscribing to Meteo Mundo if you want these kinds of live streams for all of the hurricane coverage across the Atlantic Basin and the daily forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas as well. Appreciate you guys a lot. Let's swing back over to the Jacksonville radar. Actually, I'm going to go to Tallahassee. We can take a look at all different ones. So again, we can look at all the different radars combined. It's called the composite radar, or we can look at the individual radar sites. Let me get rid of those forecast radii there. So we can clearly see that Debby's now onshore. And now that Debby's onshore, we're going to start to lose the eye. It's going to start to collapse a little bit. Typically what also happens as well is this wind starts to get pushed out and elongated on the northeast side. Basically, wherever the storm is headed, these strong winds will kind of, the circulations kind of blow their top, kind of not at the surface, but a few hundred feet up. And that could push some downburst winds that spread out. I've seen that before as well. Now, Debby is not the strongest of hurricanes, but in a couple of other ones here that have crossed Florida, I've seen that live where it's just kind of, these winds just really spread out and you actually get a more elongated area of some very significant winds. So that could happen on the northeast side with the forward movement of Debby. But again, on this western side, because there's drier air, it's really interesting. Not that far away from the center, places like Mexico Beach and Port St. Joe aren't even seeing any rain. Everything is spread off towards the east and to the northeast today. And again, all these numbers are your wind gusts. I'm still going to keep an eye on that tornado warning down in Polk County. Gainesville 36, Keystone Heights 45, 47 in Jacksonville. Still have a 48 in Valdosta, obviously not everywhere. We have a friend of the channel who's jumped on and said not as much wind in my part of Valdosta yet, but this is going to be going downhill in these areas, guys. And again, if you're just tuning in, the flood threat's going to be a big issue too. Again, that's the live look from the Jacksonville radar site. Excuse me, the Tallahassee radar site. I want to go over to the Jacksonville radar site. .47 there in Jacksonville. Yeah, I mean, the winds are just picking up pretty strong here. Still have that tornado warning. They're just going to let that run until 6:30, I think. I don't think they're going to make any changes to that one. Let's loop up this one. This is the last 6-hour loop. So we're going to kind of reset the scene for all of our new folks who have jumped on here. And I appreciate you guys tuning in as we hit 8:30 Eastern Daylight Time. All right, starting to pick up some new chat here, guys. Let's see. Cameron says, just subscribe. How's Green Cove Springs looking for later today? Green Cove Springs. Remind me exactly where that is, Cameron. Is that north central part of the state, I believe? Give me a little bit better idea. I know Florida very well, and I've heard of Green Cove Springs, but if you could let me know, I appreciate it. Thank you, Wilfred. Find it interesting. It says, hurricanes remind me of by people migrating. Okay. Tom says, flooding in Crystal River. Okay. Thanks, Tom. Unfortunately, sorry to hear that, but not unexpected. Low-lying area. That's where I'm from. I grew up right on the coast, and not surprising that when we were looking at maybe a 3 to 6 foot storm surge in this area, that a lot of the Nature Coast in general, Cedar Key South, would have some water inundation. It happens a lot in that area. Cameron says south of Jacksonville. You got it. There we go. I got you, man. So first of all, obviously you're waking up this morning and you're in the 30, 45, 50 mile an hour winds. Tropical storm conditions are likely, and I'm just going to talk about the Jacksonville metro area in general, through at least mid-afternoon, because Debby's track will actually get slightly closer to Jacksonville at least through mid-afternoon. Now, obviously, it's going to blow its top a little bit with the winds, but we're still going to have these feeder bands coming on, and in the squalls, we could still get winds of over 50 miles an hour. So, for Jacksonville itself, certainly the opportunity for flash flooding, certainly the opportunity for tropical storm conditions sustained, winds of over 40 miles an hour through at least mid-afternoon. The opportunity for an isolated tornado threat comes along for the ride as well. And this is not just Jacksonville, but a lot of Florida is in this same boat. If I put on the severe watches, do you guys see this area in purple? These are our tornado watches that are currently in effect. And for the Jacksonville area, and I want to just double check that it's the same time as well for you here. So give me 1 second. It is until 4 p.m. And that's what I was saying about mid-afternoon. So 40 plus mile an hour winds, heavy rainfall, tropical storm conditions, isolated tornado threat through at least mid-afternoon. And the rain will continue for a lot longer than that, right? As Debby kind of slows up into southeast Georgia. Jacksonville's certainly close enough, being on the east side still, moisture feeding in with the south winds. So Jacksonville is just really kind of getting started, to be quite honest. I mean, you can see, you go all the way back down to Sarasota, Bradenton, Port Charlotte. Winds are still over 40. Feeder bands are still working their way in, some rotation within that as well. Now, it's good to see that this tornado warning that was in effect for Polk County has been allowed to expire. We did have over 40 mile an hour wind gusts there in Auburndale, but hopefully, again, if nothing else, these are very, very brief rotations, very, very brief funnels, hoping for nothing to actually drop down of any significance. Freckles says, Pinellas by the beach got hit bad. Yeah. I joined every single live last night. Couldn't get one freaking response. Probably the lives were not monitored for a time there. Single plywood for roof. Sorry to hear that, Freckles. Hopefully for the best for you guys. Pinellas County is on the other side of the bay, St. Petersburg area, right there along the coast. And they still have, again, southwest winds. I've mentioned that as well, right? 40, 45, 50 mile an hour winds, and a lot of flooding. And that southwest wind pushes the water all the way up the Tampa Bay. And South Tampa is known to flood in these southwest wind scenarios. It's a bad wind direction for Tampa Bay and the orientation of the bay and the coastline there. And then just the inherent push of water inland, right? 2 to 4 foot storm surge in a lot of these areas. I've seen pictures and videos all the way down in the Port Charlotte, Fort Myers area of pretty significant flooding there along the coast as well. You know, cars stuck in water, situations like that. So unfortunately, it is fairly widespread up and down the west coast of Florida, and even the opportunity here for a little bit of that heavier rain into and even a little bit of a storm surge into northeast Florida and especially the South Carolina, Georgia coastlines as Debby begins to move a little bit closer to those areas as well. Kiddo Dan says cloudy in eastern Trinidad. Thank you for the report, Kiddo Dan. Get a quick swig of water here. All right, so a couple of things I want to talk about here real quickly, and that's going to be the evolution of what's going to be happening with Debby. Again, right now, and you guys can see that eye moving inland, so Debby moved inland just before 7 o'clock. We're going to continue to see in the short term the flood threat for north central Florida, the wind threat, winds of over 45, 50 miles an hour and gusts from time to time, and the isolated tornado threat as well. And again, that could occur well south of where Debby is moving inland. Now, eventually, Debby moves into southeast Georgia and towards the coastline of the Carolinas and begins to slow down. And that becomes where the flood threat is an inherent issue, okay? So we can start to see the evolution of this into what's going to be a big time storm rainfall potential for us here. If we take a look at the storm surge out of Debby, again, western sides of the state of Florida, 6 to 10 foot storm surge as a peak, and that is occurring right now in many locations. Whatever that number is going to end up being, it's occurring right now for the Big Bend and the Nature Coast, a 4 to 6 foot storm surge likely in Yankeetown and Chaskawiska. Then you've got yourself a 3 to 5 foot storm surge down towards Tampa Bay. Even in Charlotte Harbor, 1 to 3 feet. Now, I want to be clear, a fair amount of that is already occurred, okay? But Tampa Bay is still seeing some storm surge. And again, the new information here is for the mouth of the St. Mary's River north to the South Santee River in South Carolina, now calling for a 2 to 4 foot storm surge there. It's going to be very dependent on whether we end up getting the eye to move back offshore. The center of circulation of whatever Debby is at that point in time still forecast to be a tropical storm. If it can pull itself off the coastline again near Savannah, then you're going to have the opportunity for a little bit more wind, a little bit more rain, and a little bit more storm surge. That's a possibility. The other issue, of course, is the flood threat. And the flood threat could be extremely significant in these areas. You can see that higher end on that graphic, and all that's really telling you is that the National Weather Service believes that there's an extremely high chance of flooding in this area. And we've been talking about that, right? We've been mentioning how that more than likely is going to be happening in a very broad and significant way, where we could have, again, from the National Hurricane Center directly, 10 to 20 inches of rain, maybe even up to 30 inches of rain. It would be pretty incredible indeed. And they've mentioned the words life-threatening and catastrophic as well. If we go back over to the live radar, I've put on the rainfall forecast from the GFS model. Now, a couple of notes here of this forecast. First of all, it only goes out 5 days, okay? And secondly, on this particular product, it doesn't go any higher than 14 inches. But I want you to notice how many of these areas are in that kind of range. You know, even here, where we have more forward speed, 6 inches or higher, Gainesville 6, 7 inches, Stark 8, Jacksonville 8 to 9, Lake City 10. So as we get into the far north and northeast sides of Florida, we're getting into a foot of rain or more. Fargo, Waycross, Brunswick, again, 10, 12, 14 inches of rain towards Savannah. Notice again the slow track of Debby. Let me be clear. Use 12-hour plots, and Debby's not moving. 15, 20 miles each 12 hours, basically sitting. And could Debby be doing a loop of some kind? Absolutely, right? May not be this straightforward line. Debby may just decide to park itself off of the Georgia or South Carolina coastline because, again, it's not that the steering flow is gone, it's that the steering flow is in the complete opposite direction of where Debby wants to go. As Debby wants to head northeast, winds are out of the northeast, and they just negate themselves, right? So their forward speed becomes nominal, if anything. But you can see how widespread up even into south portions of North Carolina and Wilmington some of this rainfall could be. And I promise you, more will fall than what I'm showing you. It's just the maximum that this product can show you. Again, officially right now, 10 to 20 inches of rain, locally up to 30. Anywhere, if you live in this area anywhere, you need to continue to monitor your local officials, local government, emergency managers, National Weather Service offices for all the updated information. But starting tomorrow, we transition into the opportunity for some very significant rain and a very significant flood threat. Let me show you the track of Debby. We're going to go back over to our friend, the HRRR model. It's the high resolution rapid refresh. This puppy updates every hour. So it's a great model to use in this scenario because we're looking at a model which is able to grasp real-time information. It only goes out 48 hours, but you can see what it's doing with Debby. Right? Spinning up there like that. And notice the slower movement with Debby as well. That's going to end up being a huge, huge problem. Where Debby is just going to really, really slow down. So it's going to be a problem, friends, unfortunately. Just going to really park itself. And you can see as well, obviously the center of circulation is not nearly as intact off the Georgia-South Carolina coastline. But it's enough to spiral in all of this rain again. And this just goes out 48 hours. If I go back over to the GFS model, we go ahead and go out the full 5 days. Again, you can see how this plays out. Might be a sloppy, elongated system, but what's the bottom line? It's not moving. And that's a big problem for southeast Georgia, coastal Carolina, and eventually maybe even south sides of North Carolina as well. A lot of heavy rain here. Again, potentially historic rain, catastrophic rain, however you want to word it. When you're talking about 10 to 20 inches of rain, maybe locally higher, up to 30. And again, straight from the National Hurricane Center. That would be a big problem. Connie says had 36 inches of rain from Turtle, probably a different word. Florence, southeast coastal North Carolina. Every means of water and roads were flooded. Understood. Devin, I hope 14 feet is good. I give no promises, but that's obviously very high. And if you were okay in Irma, we'll see, right? They are talking about, again, historical rain. I don't want to say anyone is good, but the fact that you're that high up is an advantage, right? It's an advantage to lower lying areas for sure. So again, on the GFS, we can just see how this doesn't move much. And that's a big issue. All right. Let's bring back on our radar. I'm going to actually bring back on the composite here. Kind of go back into our tracking mode. Going to bring back on our wind gusts. And we'll bring back on our watches and warnings, and I'll make sure there are no tornado warnings. That is good news. Again, a tornado watch continues for all these areas in purple, all the way down here to Sarasota and all the way up into southeast Georgia till 4 o'clock. Okay, friends, I've been on for about 2 hours and 40 minutes straight. I am going to take a very brief break. Stick around, please. I will be back momentarily. I believe, give me 1 second here. No, I'm not even going to try it. It's okay. All right. So I'm going to leave this up. It's going to be running. And I will be back in just a couple of minutes here. And hopefully we'll have the opportunity to bring you guys some pictures and videos and some live cameras as well. So give me 1 second and I'll see you back here in just a minute. Okay, gang, back. Good to see you here, 8:52 on this early Monday morning, doing live coverage of Hurricane Debby. If you're just tuning in, first of all, thank you for doing so. If you want to do me a big favor, click that like button on this live stream right now. Really helps support me here at Meteo Mundo. Keeps the lights on. I appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, thank you for subscribing to the channel as well. Obviously, took a quick break. Efforting to bring you guys a couple of other things here as well, as far as some of the other information I want to pass along. But, you know, in the short term here, Debby has moved inland near Steinhatchee early on this Monday morning. Landfall was somewhere just before 7 a.m. We continue to see tropical storm conditions through a lot of the peninsula of Florida, even as far south as the Bradenton, Sarasota areas for us here, and the opportunity for some severe weather, including tornadoes and waterspouts. Obviously, we're going to have some hurricane conditions a little bit closer to the center of circulation. Now, Debby will continue to slowly progress off to the north and to the east. Right now, it's moving at around 10 miles an hour. Going to move up north and east through north central Florida towards Live Oak and then into south central sides of Georgia. And eventually, as it does so, it's going to end up slowing down. And that's going to end up being a big problem with Debby, because as Debby begins to slow down, obviously the opportunity for some more significant flooding is going to occur. And that's what's going to happen here over the next 24 hours. We're going to transition from a very heavy wind threat, the storm surge threat along the west coast of Florida, and the severe weather threat across the peninsula into a flood threat for southeast Georgia and the Carolinas as well. So don't want to put the cart before the horse, as they say, but you know, the opportunity for what the Hurricane Center is calling historic and catastrophic flash flooding from Debby is a potential in southeast Georgia, coastal Carolina, South Carolina, and maybe a sliver of even North Carolina as well. It's going to be a big problem for these spots because of Debby's slow forward speed over the week ahead. Now, at this point in time, again, Debby does have some forward motion, which is good news, but the steering currents begin to fight each other, right? The winds are going to be coming out of the northeast, fighting Debby, trying to kind of push its way away from the area. So the forecast is for Debby to really slow up here starting tomorrow morning. At this point in time, again, we're still going to continue to see winds of 35, 40, 45, and even some gusts of 50 miles an hour well east and southeast of the center of circulation. And you can see the numbers on your screen. Those are wind gusts in miles an hour over the last 6 hours. And it's been very fresh. As these squalls, as these feeder bands have worked their way through the peninsula of the state, they kick up, obviously, the rain. They kick up the winds. We've had an isolated tornado threat as well. And they're just producing more and more nuisance localized flooding. Well, here we go. So where I live, we have a tornado warning. Okay. Well, this is why I'm looking at it. Let me go over here. And as we say, this is not shocking. So let me take off the satellite. Let's bring on the Melbourne radar. And again, this was very much expected here in Central Florida to have the opportunity for some tornadic activity for today. Hopefully everything is very brief, right? It's very brief. It doesn't last long. If there's any kind of actual rotation, it's gone very, very quickly. Again, if you guys give me just 1 second here, I'm going to endeavor to pull up some of the radar sites. Okay, there we go. Okay. So we do have a tornado warning for the western side of Orange County here in Florida. Let's take a look at the velocity data here. And here's where we have this couplet right here. This is going to be east of the 429. Lake Buena Vista, by the way, is Walt Disney World and the Magic Kingdom and Epcot and all of those areas that, you know, tourists from all over the world come to. Lake Buena Vista is Walt Disney World area. So this is very close to Walt Disney World, but it is slightly north and west of there. Right now it's just east of the 429. Could, if it holds together, be potentially moving over places like Windermere. Now I want to be clear about this again. You know, they're going to issue these tornado warnings when they see a little bit of spin, and they're looking for reds and greens together. So it's not necessarily meaning that this is staying on the ground, but we do see a couplet here. Okay, so tornado warning currently in effect for the western sides of Orange County. That's in Central Florida, just kind of south and west of downtown Orlando, near the Lake Buena Vista area. Goes for the next 16 minutes. And if you guys heard my phone, it's because I am within that area. You guys will obviously understand if I take a second to get all the newest information on this. I can tell you that the winds are picking up outside. Goes until 9:15. It's radar indicated. It's a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. It's, you know, very, very common, again, with these landfalling storms. So Orlando area, and this is from the Weather Service, Ocoee, Winter Garden, and then eventually Pine Hills and Orla Vista. This is all kind of the western sides of the Metro Orlando area. But I can, you know, we can clearly see the couplet here. All right, sorry there. For some reason, it's interesting. My internet connection might be a little bit slow right now. So again, guys, tornado warning does continue for the western sides of Orange County. Again, just looking for a little bit of spin. There's a little couplet right here, just south and east. Let's take a look at the winds out of it. I can tell you that the winds are really freshening up outside. I'll tell you that much right now. A lot of wind coming in with this, for sure. And again, this thing is racing. It's hauling north at around 35 miles an hour. So very, very quick. Very, very quick. Go back over to reflectivity. Very heavy rain. Having a little bit of an issue because I'm actually having a lag on my main computer. So you guys are actually seeing the movement before I am. So it's kind of making it a little bit harder here to look at this because as I zoom in, I see it first on my preview monitor, but I don't want to reset anything right now considering that we're in this tornado warning. Again, what we'd be looking for is a little bit of rotation right here. Hopefully it falls apart very quickly. Probably going to be a lot of wind coming along for the ride, though. Nothing outrageous, I would say, so far. Again, I'm just having to wait because my computer is lagging a bit right now. Let me do something real quick, guys. I'm going to shut this down real quick. I think you guys will understand. So if you're just tuning in, where I live in Florida, we are under a tornado warning. But it happens. Again, I'm not even sure I'm getting all the live chat right now either. So I apologize if there's some chat that I'm missing. Okay. Let me bring this back up. I'm going to peek my head outside real quick too. I can promise you this, you can't see much. So hopefully now my computer's behaving a little bit better. Doesn't look like it has much though, to be honest. So again, looking for a potential funnel tornado here, far western sides of Orange County in Florida. Goes for the next 11 minutes. Still have a bit of a couplet here, hopefully not very significant. I can tell you because I live within this tornado warning, the winds are very, very fresh right now. Very, very strong. You see the winds have picked up to 37 miles an hour at the downtown airport, 33 at OIA. If you've ever visited Florida, you might have gone to Lake Buena Vista, which is the attractions. That's Magic Kingdom and, Epcot, Disney area, Disney Springs, all of that. So this is very near there right now. And then just up towards the north and to the east. I'm actually just testing to make sure that all of my computer systems are still working. Again, I'm not sure. There we go. So I see myself in the chat. It does hopefully look like that couplet has come down a bit in strength. That would be good news. Let's go back over to our base reflectivity. I'm going to take off the Melbourne radar. So again, be watching for that. Hopefully that tornado warning expires at 9:15. But you get the idea, guys. This is what we're going to end up seeing here in Florida, is these feeder bands moving onshore, producing the opportunity for brief tornadoes, okay? Opportunity for brief tornadoes, funnels, if nothing else, a lot of gusty winds, 30, 35, 40, even 50 miles an hour. And again, this tornado warning is well away from where we have the center of Debby. And this has been a problem here for portions of Central Florida as these feeder bands have come on shore. There's been some inherent rotation with those as well. All right. You got it, Raul. Our friends at the JetBlue hangar. Best wishes to our friends there at MCO. Bad day to be out there trying to get folks where they want to go via the airlines. So again, severe weather threat. That's why the tornado watch is up until 4 o'clock. I mentioned the wind threat. Jacksonville starting to get up to nearly 60-mile-an-hour winds. That's significant. Very, very significant there. Pause this. I believe I'm going to have to reset this here, but I don't want to yet. If I go to next rad, we can actually, if I can, again, I'm fighting it right now. Oh, the MLB is on. Do I see the terminal Doppler? Yes, there it is. All right, so this is the terminal Doppler out of the Orlando airport. Again, unfortunately, behind the scenes, my system's just a little slow right now, so I'm having to let it play catch up briefly. But the terminal Doppler out of the Orlando airport should allow us to see if there's any rotation within this. Okay, so what we'd be looking at here, first of all, those winds are going to be pretty light. It's these pink winds that are going to be really strong right now. Hopefully they're all going in one direction. Try and query those for you guys if I can. Yeah, so again, in the western sides of Orange County in Orlando area, and these are close to ground truth winds, guys, because they're near the radar site. You can see again, we're going to have some 60-mile-an-hour winds here. Altamont Springs, south of Popka, Ocoee, Metro West. That is the executive airport with a 36-mile-an-hour wind so far. So there is an airport, a smaller one located in downtown Orlando. But you can just see all these pinks. And again, the radar site is right here. This is very low shooting from the ground. These are significant winds at ground level. The weather has gotten quieter where I live. I do believe that some of the heaviest wind is now up here. Now notice, if I go back here, you're not going to see a lot in the way of strong winds where we have greens and reds. This is not going to be a tornado just because there's greens and reds together. There has to be a stronger couplet than that. What I do see is winds pushing in one direction away from the radar site, which are getting to be extremely significant. Here in Winter Springs, in Castleberry, in Maitland and Altamont Springs. This is the north side of Metro Orlando, where we could have well over 60-mile-an-hour winds. It's a very serious situation for our friends here in the Orlando area of Florida. And I think this is just a sign to show you guys, again, how Debby is going to be impacting areas well away from the actual center of circulation. To begin with, the severe weather threat in the peninsula of Florida, right? And then again, the flood threat to the north and to the east. South Georgia, coastal South Carolina, a little bit later on. I'm going to reset my system. Wasn't interested in bringing in that last graphic that I brought. Okay. Sorry about that. I thought I was in what's called basically off-air mode so I could take a look at something, but it didn't. So this is the flash flood potential. So what I'm going to end up doing here, guys, I'm going to have to take a second. I'm going to have to reset the radar system so we can look at some of these graphics while I'm doing so. But I'm also going to have to while talking, try and reset the radar system. So can I do two things at once? That is always a question. You'll notice that the flash flood potential is significant in this area, right? It's going to be a problem. It's going to be an issue that we're going to have to continue to monitor here, especially far north Florida, Georgia, portions of South Carolina. All right. I do apologize for the break in talking. So I'm trying to figure out where I am here. Again, unfortunately, everything's just kind of running a little bit slow. Might have something to do with the tornado warning. We'll see. They have allowed that to expire. That's good news. Okay. Now I was able to at least get to the computer where I need to reset it. So I'm going to do that real quick. How's everyone doing, by the way? You guys hanging in there? It's always fun to be on the air and then have a tornado warning in your area, right? It happens. Not immune to it, that's for sure. So again, I bring up this graphic because the flood threat is going to be extremely significant. Southeast Georgia, South Carolina, coastal areas especially, and then maybe the far southern sides of North Carolina. So that flash flood potential is extremely, extremely high. When we look at the storm surge threat, that becomes another issue as well, right? Storm surge threat, 6 to 10 feet where Debby has moved inland. 6 to 10 feet where Debby has moved inland. That is extremely, extremely significant for the Big Bend area of Florida, right? The Big Bend area of Florida all the way down towards the Nature Coast, then down towards Chaskawiska, 4 to 6. There as you get into Citrus County, south 3 to 5. And then basically the new information on this graphic is going to be what could happen in the coastal sides of Georgia and the Carolinas, where you could have a 2 to 4 foot storm surge on top of 10 to 20 and even 30 inches of rain. That is going to be a big problem. Stuart says, good morning from Lake City. As you promised, it's turned quite into a rain event. Thank you for your coverage. Appreciate you, Stuart. Thank you very much as well. Again, just firing back up my weather computer. So we can get back to that live coverage. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me while I'm making that happen. Doesn't seem like this thing wants to be running any faster, but we'll give it a shot. Okay. Hey, at least it's back up. Okay. We can start fresh, as they say, my friends. So the good news is that that storm that brought the tornado warning down in the Orlando area has been allowed to expire. We didn't want to see that, for sure. Get back over to our, again, this is our reflectivity product where the storm has moved inland. We're obviously going to start to lose the eye signature here, but you can see on the update from my weather computer where this pink area is where we still expect hurricane force winds. So Perry and Mayo, near the Bradford area right now, close to Live Oak, close to White Springs, Jasper, Madison areas, and all this moving up to the north and to the east. Obviously, these winds will relax a bit as they move inland as far as true hurricane strength. But that opportunity for some much stronger winds, 55, 60 plus, still going to be there. Let's take a look at the wind gusts. Those are temperatures, so don't freak yourself out. These are the wind gusts at the hour. And again, we've got nearly 60 in Jacksonville right now. And these feeder bands will continue to bring in some exceptionally heavy rain. Squally weather, tornadic potential, all coming along for the ride. I would expect 35, 40 plus mile an hour winds through a lot of central and north central Florida through the remainder of the day. Take off the satellite data here, a little bit easier to see. If you guys have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop in the comments section below. While you're down there, you know I appreciate you guys hitting that like button for me as well. But those feeder bands just do not want to stop, do they? This is a very elongated system now. We're all the way down here. We still have these bands trying to work their way through. And you'll see that those numbers will punch up from time to time. I promise you, those are those feeder bands coming in with the opportunity for an isolated severe weather threat as well. I'm going to drop this time frame down a little bit, just to the last couple of hours. Again, right now, no tornado warnings. That's good news. Eventually, up in this neck of the woods is when we're really going to start to see the winds freshen, the opportunity for extremely heavy rainfall, and then eventually down the road, you know, the opportunity for, gusts that will start to pick up in that 55, 60 mile an hour range for a time, all right? But this is going to be the area of concern for the most concentration of impacts. Still, though, through the spine of the state, 40, 45 mile an hour winds and an isolated tornado threat as well. Again, I hope that when these tornado warnings are issued, there's a brief funnel or a brief couplet of winds that trigger that tornado warning, but it doesn't last long. I think the winds, though, that just went through downtown Orlando have been quite significant. So these are the last reports, but it's not going to shock me if we start to see some of these winds when the new reports come in be well over 40 miles an hour. And there's that tornado warning. It's actually drifting a little bit east right now. There it is. Also, if you're just tuning in, and I know a lot of you guys are tuning in from the Caribbean, again, there's a tropical wave right now that's moving through the Windward Islands, Lesser Antilles in general. It's brought heavier showers and storms, especially to places like St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad, Tobago, and Barbados today already. Yesterday, we had some winds of over 40 miles an hour in these spots. This will continue to roll off towards the west. We've had scattered showers in Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And again, I just want you to notice that the Hurricane Center has updated this potential development area. Just like I mentioned in yesterday's video, sorry about that, didn't expect it to develop. This is part of the problem with my computer lagging behind the scenes, as I can't quite exactly see where we're going here. That there's no development likely in the Eastern Caribbean. But as it gets into the Central Caribbean and areas to the north and to the west, that opportunity will grow. So down the road, this is the next area that I'm going to be monitoring for potential development as we get maybe starting on Wednesday, but especially towards the end of the week. Now, towards Jamaica, it wouldn't be strong yet, right? But as we go farther in time, later in the week, that's when we could start to see these storms in this system to wrap up. And it could be our next named storm. We have to watch out for that Northwest Caribbean, Yucatan, portions of Central America, southwest sides of the Gulf of Mexico as a broad brush beginning for a potential track. But as we go through the week, during the videos I'll produce here at Meteo Mundo, we'll talk much more about what the models are talking about and the potential divergence, the potential possibilities that this next system could bring down the road. But for right now, obviously, it's about Debby. Again, I want you to notice how slow of a movement Debby is forecast to bring, right? How slow this is forecast to be. Debby may literally be sitting over one area for a couple of days. And again, the official track has Debby moving back offshore near Savannah. And then over a span of about 48 hours, not moving much, kind of eking up towards Charleston. Wouldn't be surprised if we get some of those loop-de-loops as well. Again, the steering flow is fighting the forward speed of Debby and really just reduces it to nothing. And that's going to be the problem. Bring back on our reflectivity. Again, those ovals that you see are the forecast winds. I'm just going to take those off for now. And we'll bring back on our wind gusts as well. Those are temperatures. Don't freak out. There we go. Look, the winds are high enough, right? So there you go. You can see these feeder bands coming in through Jacksonville. We've had over 50-mile-an-hour winds, and they're getting more sustained in that number. If you guys live in that area, let me know. All the way back down towards Tampa right now, too. Let me, again, drop this loop just a little bit here. Landfall was just before 7 a.m. near Steinhatchee. We've heard from Lake City this morning, who said power's out. That's going to be a big problem here through the Big Bend and into north central Florida in general. Again, Cedar Key, which is kind of sticks out a little bit into the Gulf. A lot of heavy water inundation here, 5 to 10 feet. That can be very significant. That eye wall is beginning to kind of expand out. And so we're going to get stronger winds across the I-10 corridor. They'll be crossing I-75, and they'll be getting into south central and eventually southeast sides of Georgia. And then we're just kind of getting these bands trying to almost wrap back around from Daytona Beach, Palm Coast, St. Augustine North, St. Mary's as well. 50, 55-mile-an-hour winds from time to time. Nice little 58 there in the southern sides of Jacksonville. And again, you can see the winds picking up near the Orlando area as well. So this is going to be a wide-scale impact today, which, again, for this point in time is going to be wind, the tornado threat, the heavy rainfall threat. But really down the road, it is about the significant potential for the flooding. Again, 10 to 20 inches of rain possible in portions of Georgia and South Carolina. And this will just continue to work its way up to the north and to the east, but also slow down that forward speed relatively significantly as well. The purple that you see that I just brought on, that is the severe thunderstorm, the tornado watch that is currently in effect. Goes until 4 o'clock, and it is a huge chunk of Florida and portions of the southeast sides of Georgia. So obviously on the east side of landfall, right, very clear to see, east side of landfall, rotating storms, inherent rotation, the opportunity for brief waterspouts, brief tornadoes. We've had a couple of those. If you were watching, you heard my phone go off, had a tornado warning in our area. We're fine. Winds picked up for a time, but things are actually a little bit quieter right now. But very strong winds overall in a broad field, right? Where we have a lot of 35 and 40-mile-an-hour winds. Travel is not going to be great here. And again, travel may be extremely impossible as Debby begins to set up shop coastal Georgia, coastal South Carolina down the road as well. Gainesville's winds have maybe relaxed just a touch, but we're still close to our center. We're still going to see squalls moving in. So Alachua County, I-75, 35, 40 mile an hour winds. It's been a little bit fresher up towards Jacksonville the last couple of hours, nearly 60 mile an hour winds. More and more of the reporting stations in Jacksonville reporting those kinds of winds. Take a look at those here in just a second. But again, 58 mile an hour wind gusts there. Let's see when that was last reported. Get myself off camera, or at least away. So at 8:53, a little more than a half hour ago, they had a 58 mile an hour wind there. At 9 o'clock, they had a 48 mile an hour wind on the east side. And then on the north side of Jacksonville, they had a 52, again, about a half hour ago. So very impressive indeed. And again, this is going to continue to move up to the north and to the east. Forward speed right now, about 10 to 12 miles an hour, something like that. I would continue to say that I would expect there to be tropical storm conditions through Florida, Orlando north, let's say, through at least early afternoon. Now look, you go farther north, you're going to run into more trouble longer in the day, right? More sustained winds of tropical storm strength, the potential tornadic activity, and the very heavy rainfall. In this part of Florida, it's 8 to 12 inches of rain that are possible. Then we get into southeast Georgia, and those amounts could go higher. And as Debby stalls across the far northern part of the state, northeast part of the state, is 12 to 18 inches as a maximum possibility. It's not all going to fall today, friends, but it is going to fall in the next couple of days in this area. And then that rain spreads north and east. And it's already beginning to rain in these areas, but it's more about how Debby doesn't move here near Savannah, near Charleston. That's going to be the biggest problem. My friends in the Bahamas, you can see some of these far outer feeder bands moving in. Freeport and Lucaya and Walker's Key and Bimini, all with good downpours. Some brief gusty bursts of heavy rain and wind. Not sustained, but it's going to be out there from time to time for sure. And you can see those winds tailing into the central part of the state. Go back over to, give me one second here, guys. So currently no tornado warnings. That is good news. It's the one thing that I'm going to have to stop and keep an eye out here. It's just to make sure that we don't have a tornado warning that has cropped up. I do have it on my system live, but when I have so much data on the screen as well, every so often, it sadly kind of almost gets lost in the mix. But again, all of that rotation coming on with the inherent opportunity for some storms that rotate, produce an isolated tornado risk. It all comes along for the ride. Even Tallahassee got into a 41 mile an hour wind gust. It's relatively impressive that far west. I'm going to bring back on their radar. And again, live radar out of Tallahassee. Not that far away from where we have the center of Debby, which has moved inland. And as of the 8 o'clock advisory, they still had Debby as a hurricane with winds of 75 miles an hour. And again, you see those deep reds just north and east? That's a big burst of wind coming in. So the winds are going to be picking up in Mayo and Perry, Madison, Live Oak. And again, eventually down the road as this kind of blows to the north and to the east. And that wind field will elongate as well. It'll spread out. And that'll head towards Valdosta and Lake Park. But even again, on these outer feeder bands, you're seeing these wind gusts nearly at 60 miles an hour. Brunswick, Georgia, beginning to pick up as well. This is all just going to continue to work its way up towards the north. I may not be able to show you guys, I was trying to, the European model. I'm going to look at that real quickly here. If I go here, I should be able to see if the system pulled it in or not. Give me 1 second here. Okay, good. All right. I want you to look at the European model rainfall totals. This is the newest run of the European model, by the way. If you notice at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you see 18.09 maximum. That is the maximum on this map over the next 7 days. And you notice that's basically bullseyed over coastal South Carolina. You see the 17.4 there. So the maximum is 18.09, but you see the heavy rain through southeast Georgia and coastal South Carolina. It's underdoing the rain that we're going to see in north central and northeast Florida, but I just want you to note that I showed you the GFS model earlier, which was showing a huge swath of a foot of rain or more. The European model is also picking up on that kind of more than a foot of rain. And again, the official messaging, friends, from the National Hurricane Center is 10 to 20 inches of rain. So that plays out, right? Maybe slightly lower than that, but they've also mentioned up to 30 inches of rain. 30 inches of rain, it's 2.5 feet, right? They've used the words historical and they've used the words catastrophic. And if it were to play out, that's exactly what would happen. You know, you're talking about more rain in one spot in a shorter amount of time than what we've ever seen in these areas. But the European model, again, 18.09 as a maximum, and that could be portions of Georgia or the South Carolina coastline. And if you also notice how there's a little maximum here, it's because Debby sits and spins right here for a while. And that's why that's lighter here and heavier around it. The European model is picking up on a very stalled Debby just east of Georgia's coast, maybe just off of Myrtle Beach. But it's clear to see the spin of the convective bands around the broad center of Debby. It's not going to be a tight center. It's going to be a tropical storm more than likely, but you get the idea that that's what the European model is picking up on. So happy that not getting any more alerts going off that there's any tornado warnings right now. Obviously, that's never a fun situation, but you can see those areas in pink. That is a tornado watch that is currently in effect, and that is going to go all the way until 4 o'clock. So even right deep into the afternoon hours, as Debby is going to be well inland, all of these south winds will continue to feed in across central, north central Florida. And the winds are freshening up right now in portions of south sides of Georgia. You guys have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comments section below. While you're down there, if you could do me a big favor and like this video. And if you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo, thank you so much for clicking that subscribe button right now. It really helps support me here at the channel. I appreciate you guys and all the support that you've shown me here during this hurricane season. Do we have our visible satellite imagery waking up yet this morning? Let's take a look. Doesn't look like it, not yet. It's trying to. There we go. So this is the visible satellite imagery. Obviously, you only get that during daylight hours. But you can just see how big of a system Debby is. And even down here, pushing back into southwest Florida. You got the live lightning data. All that live lightning data will click on for us here. But again, there's your imagery there. We can do a split. I'm going to put on both the infrared and the enhanced imagery. It's a cool shot. So we can really see now, again, we have our visible satellite imagery, but we also have the infrared here. And look at that huge cluster still right here over Mayo and Live Oak and Madison. And Valdosta's winds are now 47 and just north of 39. So there's a nice little convective burst there too. And that's where we talked about the winds that are kind of going to be broadening out and freshening up. Even Bainbridge, Georgia is up to 33, right? Strongest winds right now are in Jacksonville, 58 mile an hour winds. The Villages, 38. Orlando, 33. In general, the farther southeast that you go, the wind's going to be a little bit lighter. Cocoa, Brevard County, around 31 mile an hour winds towards Cape Canaveral. And again, those areas in purple are your tornado watches that are in effect for the rest of the day. So Debby is an elongated system in some ways. There is some drier air on the western side that I noted a little bit earlier. And that did kind of limit the western convection of Debby for most of its journey over the last 24 to 48 hours. Excuse me, 12 to 24 hours. Debby also took a slight jog east, and I mean the slightest of jogs east, but it did take a slight jog east overnight, which made landfall a little bit farther east towards Steinhatchee. Now again, we don't have the visible satellite imagery until daylight occurs, but again, we can see on the composite of the viz and the IR imagery here, still a very impressive core moving on shore, and we'll be moving into the north central portions of the state. Going to see a lot of tropical storm conditions there, and that's just going to continue, friends, for a while. Let's look at the models. We're going to get a new run here of the HER model, and that's that high resolution rapid refresh. And for our friends in the north central part of the state, we'll take a look at what that's going to mean for you. There we go. So let me bring up the HER model. And again, system behind the scenes just a little bit slow for me right now, so appreciate you bearing with me. Nothing outrageous, just slightly behind as I'm telling it to do stuff. It's a Monday morning for it as well, right? Come on. I'm trying to reset the time frame, but it's being a bit uncooperative right now. Might not be able to, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately, it's like kind of not taking my inputs. I tried, sorry. Let's see if I can single frame it if nothing else, but I may not even be able to do that. Doesn't look like it. All right. Is what it is. Not a huge deal. We'll go back to the real-time information anyway here. computer's not liking something I'm doing. I might have to see if I do this real fast. Just trying a few things here to see if I can't get it to be a little bit quicker of an input, but it looks like that didn't work either. Well, put a lot of data here on this computer, so sometimes it's not going to surprise me if it's not happy with everything that I'm asking it to do, but that's okay. So again, you know, just what I'm noticing as the trends, we're really starting to see that wind pick up in Valdosta. I mentioned that blow up of storms here, Madison, Jasper, Valdosta, then inland towards Jacksonville. Notice also offshore, more convection is developing here too, right? And you know what's going to happen, guys, is this stuff is going to develop here, and it's going to get pushed back north and west around the northern periphery of Debby. Okay? That's going to be a big problem. If we can already start to get some heavier rain getting back into coastal Georgia and South Carolina already, it's just a bad sign. We want to try and keep this area as dry as we can for as long as we can, because we know what Debby is going to end up bringing down the road. But big blow up of thunderstorms already in that area. So the reflectivity, and I'll take that off. And you can see again, there they are right there. Nice little banding features already developing and trying to spiral back into places like Savannah. We do not want to see that, for sure. And again, continue to just watch out for the opportunity for some stronger to severe storms here. I want to touch on again, real quick, for my friends in the Caribbean, this tropical wave in the Lesser Antilles, the Windward Islands in general. Heavy rain right now for places like Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. Obviously not consistent or persistent, but from time to time. The reason why I mention this area is this tropical wave, and all a tropical wave is an elongated area of showers and storms. It's coming with some very fresh winds as well, and it's also brought some rain to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, well off towards the west. This is going to spread up to the north and continue to spread off towards the west. Here's the reason why we mention this. This is the next area for potential tropical development through the week. It's not going to happen in the short term. You notice that that polygon, that area in yellow, doesn't begin until the central side of the Caribbean. So over the next couple days, this wave will continue to move off towards the west, but it's not going to develop over the Leeward Islands or over the ABC Islands. However, as we get into the Central Caribbean starting on Wednesday, there could be some signs of slow development. It should not be strong at all towards Jamaica or maybe even the Cayman Islands. You know, as we get farther west, the opportunity for it to start to get a little bit stronger is a possibility. Okay, it's a 30% chance for the Hurricane Center. That's why it's in yellow right now, but that's up from 20% yesterday. And then down the road, we'll see what might happen in the Northwest Caribbean, the Yucatan, or the Southwest Gulf of Mexico. The models, and I'll show you more of those in the videos coming up during the week as far as the potential tracks and the intensity, but it's not going to shock me if this is the next area where we're talking about development and maybe a tropical depression, tropical storm, or even more. And of course, that would be the E-named storm. Now here, of course, the big problem with Debby is that as it sneaks back off the Georgia coastline, slowing down the 10 to 20 inches of rain with locally higher amounts. So we'll go from the wind threat here, severe weather threats, 8 to 12 inches of rain possible in the northern side of the state of Florida, to more than that through Georgia and South Carolina. I just showed you the European model pinging on more than 18 inches of rain. But again, the National Hurricane Center is talking about 10 to 20 with locally up to 30 inches of rain. Friends, we're getting towards 10 o'clock. We've seen Debby move inland. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the live coverage of the landfall of Debby here in just a couple of minutes. Couple of notes. First of all, keep an eye on the situation, and if necessary, I'll bring back the 24/7 radar. I do want to shut it down, though, and give it an opportunity to reset itself. But look for that. I'll be doing a video update, as I do every day, on the Meteo Mundo page here with the latest forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas. And of course, I'll have an update on Debby as well. All the new information on that tropical wave in the Caribbean, and of course, what's going on across our area on this Monday. As I say, thank you very much. I appreciate all of you guys, again, liking this live stream. If you haven't done that, do me that really quick favor. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo as well. And again, thank you for finding ways to support our channel via the memberships. That's just 99 cents a month. That's the join button that you see. If you'd like to become a member here at Meteo Mundo, you get access to custom badges and emojis during our live stream. You've noticed that some of the people who have chatted, they have those because they are members here at Meteo Mundo. And it's just a very small way to support us here via the super thanks, super stickers, all of those things. And you can find descriptions as well, PayPal and Venmo, in those descriptions below. So again, friends, right now, as we wrap up this live coverage of the landfall of Debby, Debby is moving to the north and to the east. I still expect it to be a very big wind threat through north central Florida, the opportunity for severe weather in the peninsula of Florida, and then it transitions into a heavy rain flood threat and potentially, again, an historical and catastrophic flood potential for southeast Georgia, portions of South Carolina, maybe a sliver of North Carolina as well. As Debby slows down, heavy rainfall is likely through that area through Friday and Saturday. Friends, thank you so much again for taking a bit of your time on this Monday to tune in and join me here at Meteo Mundo. I appreciate that. You know that whenever there is important tropical weather here to track, we're going to do that for you live at Meteo Mundo. And again, I will be back on later today with a video update with all the newest information across the tropics and what's happening with Debby and that tropical wave. Friends, have a great rest of your Monday until I see you then. Again, thank you so much for tuning in and liking and subscribing. And I will see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.